homepage.
Good evening. This is our budget presentation. It is August 25th at 6 o'clock. I'll turn the meeting over to Mario.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Welcome, everybody. We have, Madam Mayor, we have on the agenda public comments, as we have in all of the workshops previous. There is no one here, but I do have our Zoom page up. And so if anybody would like to make a public comment, I have Janie Anderson. I'll ask you to unmute.
Thank you, Janie Anderson, 11th Place and 119th Street. First of all, I want to commend all of you. Last week's budget workshop was probably one of the most productive, certainly the most collegial meeting I've seen you guys have, and I really appreciate that and commend all of you. There was a comment made that I'd kind of like to offer a bit of a different perspective, and that is that longtime residents are looking to have their taxes lowered. I'm going to be really blunt. We're paying the least. I mean, when you factor what we paid for our homes decades ago, and we save our homes in place. I did the numbers on our house today with the proposed bill that came in the mail. 1/10 of a mil is $16. If, God forbid, I am ever in a position that $16 or even $116 is going to make or break me, sadly, I probably have bigger issues than Biscayne Park's taxes. I think a lot of people still don't realize it's only a portion of the total tax bill that goes to Biscayne Park. And no matter what you guys do with the millage rate, our property values, the assessments have been going up. So we're going to be paying more. And I certainly hope this year roads really are a priority, obviously from a safety perspective, first of all, but we're now a community that people are paying well over $1 million for homes. And our roads hopefully will, in the not too distant future, begin to reflect that. I'm certainly glad you guys did fund some of the awesome opportunities that the Arts and Culture Board are putting together. That's what makes us a community. We're more than just some houses in a geographic triangle. And I think Judy made a very good point. Yes, even though there's something for everybody, true, not everybody's going to take advantage of those events. But there are those of us who don't have kids, who never had kids. And we pay our school board taxes every year because it's what you do. It's what you do in a civilized society for the good of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none. Madam Mayor, we had a very long presentation and discussion last Thursday, and I thank you all for staying late. Nothing has really changed within the staff presentation or revenue projections. Overall, what has changed is the savings that we had from moving the 6% for my increase into the medical fund. That had a savings of overall of about $8,300. There was an additional $8,100 saved in the public works budget, and the communication tax revenue from the state, which we mentioned at last week, that forecast revenue went up. Even with adding $21,000 from the request from the advisory boards, we still have a $13,000 positive left over with a 9.5 millage. So today, what we would be discussing is we all met, all the commissioners and I met individually, and we had a discussion and we talked about certain things that each of you would like to see within the budget. So what I'd like to kind of go through is just go through all of those requests and see where we agree on some, so that we can then prepare the first reading ordinance for September 6th when we get together. And it will be reflecting of what the overall consensus is of the commission.
Mario, can I ask you a quick question, since you mentioned your the health insurance and how it impacted the budget in a positive way, the fact that we gave you your increase in the form of a health, we added to your insurance. In the email that you sent us, you said that the budget already recognized the total cost of your health insurance. And I understand what you're saying, but I didn't understand why it would already have done that. Are you saying there was an error in the original calculation, or how did that happen? I just want to make sure that
It's an expenditure.
yeah.
So the entire expenditure is already budgeted, and then that is made up on the biweekly deductions that come from mine. So the revenue goes in.
Set it.
It's offset in the
Okay.
revenue side, correct?
Okay, beautiful. Just wanted to make sure it wasn't something that's going to bite us in the butt.
Absolutely, not a problem. So
Right, Mac, I just would clarify that we don't have a specific line item just for that revenue, so that's why it was unrecognized.
So that's why we're not seeing it in there
Exactly.
as a line item. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul.
So tonight, I'd like to just go through the individual requests that all the commissioners had made to see where we have consensus in, and hopefully we can kind of get through this fairly quickly, because I know we've had a lot of meetings, especially this month, so I don't wish to keep you here any longer than possible. I initially was just going to go through each individual commissioner's request and just work down the list, but I'm re-looking at my organizational notes here, and I've broken every commissioner's request into individual departments. So I think what would be fair is to just go by department, and I'll just list off what's going in, and then we'll talk about it without specifically naming out any commissioner who made that request. If this person so wishes to do so, that is fine. I think we'll go more by department. And
At that point, can we drop anything else in that department, or do you want us to wait until you're done?
what I would request is let's wait until all requests for that department is
For the
done, and
department.
if there's something in addition that any of the commission wishes to bring up, we can do so. at
So
that
we'll wrap up a department before we move on.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. So moving in for the commission expenditures. The first item was for object code 55, which is education and training, was to reduce the total amount down to 2,000. And so currently it is, we have 4,200, and it's to reduce it down to 2,000. So it's a decrease of 2,200.
I agree with Art. I agree with Art Gonzalez's request on that.
Okay. Commissioner Hammelberg, are you okay with reducing the education and training on the commission budget down to 2,000? Okay. Commissioner Gonzalez,
It's his proposal.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes, I'm good with that. Thanks.
Okay. The next commission request, we have a request to, and let me just make sure this isn't duplicated, so I apologize. Yes, sir. So object code, we'll go to object code 40, and travel and per diem. A request is to have $2,000 budgeted so that the commission or members of the commission can travel to Tallahassee during committee sessions in the upcoming fiscal year. So that's the increased travel and per diem and commission, so that either the commission or members of the commission can travel to Tallahassee for committee weeks.
The last page.
And currently, there's $0 budgeted for travel, and they're asking to increase it to 2,000.
Are you open? to
Commission-
discussion?
Do you all want to discuss it or do you want me to go down the line? All right, we'll start with Commissioner Kennedy and walk down the other line.
I would not like to, we just saved some money in the commission budget and I'd like to see us not add something back in another item that's basically the same amount. And if any of us wants to go to Tallahassee, we get, just to make sure we're all clear, we get paid some money to do this job. It's not exactly a salary per se, and it is meant to reimburse us for the expenses of doing this job. And I think that if we want to go to Tallahassee and participate in something up there, that would certainly be an expense of doing this job, and we should use our own compensation to pay for that. So I would not support putting any money into that budget.
Mayor?
I think we discussed that last time, that we pay our own way if we want to go to Tallahassee. And I agree.
Commissioner Gonzalez? Commissioner Hammelberg?
I agree. Pay our own way.
Okay. The next item is on Commission Object Code 11, which is compensation. The request is that all compensation should be reduced to $1 for each member of the commission, a total decrease of 11,995.
That's a radical thought. Who came up with that? I mean, really, that's an out of the box kind of a thing. So guys, I'm going to say this every year and we can have a quick discussion and move on. But in my opinion, we should be each taking $1 a year, save this money, $12,000 and or more. I think it's like 14 by the time you add in FICA and insurance and all that other kind of stuff. So but what we get paid is so minimal anyway. I think it shouldn't, and not, and having I know we've had commissioners in the past, refuse the pay. Yeah, exactly. Or he donated it or refused to pay. It's not the same as not having it in the budget. So that money could be budgeted, allocated for something else. Those are two different things. So if somebody chooses to donate their money or do something with that money, that's great, but it doesn't help our budget. So that's just my opinion on that.
Well, but if you're saying that we have money coming to us and we should be spending that for our trips to Tallahassee and other things, and then you're taking that away, that kind of defeats the purpose of what you're saying to not.
You're absolutely right. I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth there, but the reality is that no one ever does it anyway. So there's that. How many of us went to Tallahassee in the past 2 years?
I know, but that's because of COVID. Before that, I remember Rob.
We have a nice excuse this time, but before that and before that, I think I know every once in a while somebody would go, but it was not a significant thing. I don't know exactly what they accomplished, but look, if I got paid $1 a year for this job and I wanted to go to Tallahassee, I'd dig into my own pocket and pay my way to Tallahassee. I'd figure out a way.
Well, even if you get $2,000, you'll dig into your pocket and pay your own way.
So I'm going to presume, Commissioner Kennedy, you're a yes for this reduction. Mayor? In favor of the reduction or not?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Hammelberg?
No.
Okay, so that is a 2-2. So it will stay as it's currently budgeted.
So Mari, I have a procedural question for you because Dan's not here and we didn't take a roll because it's a workshop. How does it work when someone's not here at a workshop and you want his opinion on that? He's not zooming in either, so he's not here at all. Are you allowed to go talk to Dan about what we decided and get his official vote towards consensus, or are the four of us now kind of deciding on things?
We're kind of deciding on things, and we'll, ties kind of just like in a motion where a tie
Okay.
just kills the
I
motion.
just didn't know how procedurally that worked. So, but he'll obviously have a chance to speak up if he's at both, or any of us do a budget workshop, ordinance readings as well.
Correct. Okay. The
I want
other,
to make sure Dan has an opportunity to be heard on.
okay, so the next item would come down for Commission Object Code 48 promotional activities. And the request is to purchase Meet Your Commissioner banner and for events, and possibly have a tent or tables as well. That would be a $300 increase within the budget. Commission.
So that was my item. Do you want me just to speak to it real quickly?
Sure, if you're
So,
comfortable with that.
At village events, Art, people are there, residents are there, a lot of new people who don't know any of the commissioners, and they're coming and engaging with the village for the first time, or, they on an infrequent basis, and they kind of don't know who the village is, and I'd love there to be an opportunity for us to formalize our presence at these things a little bit. So there was a place, so people knew that there were commissioners in attendance and they could, something that, a place for us to sort of mix and mingle with residents where we're identified so they know, oh, I can meet my commissioner here. I mean, some people approach me because they know who I am, but I'm not identified. I'm just some guy hanging out there with my husband, you
But
know,
we could be introduced, which would make more sense.
and sometimes they do, like sometimes the other night we were
A
at.
lot of times they don't. We really should remind them that,
Yeah,
that we should go up to whoever the microphone person.
But
like
going,
the other time they asked me to sort of wave at the audience.
when I go to these events, when I've been to these events, we have already a tent that says Village of Biscayne Park, right?
It doesn't say Village of Biscayne Park on it.
Biscayne Park Police.
Oh, is it Biscayne Park Police Department?
That's
Yeah.
okay. We fit in.
Yeah, it's the police. I don't know. It's just, I just would like to,
Yeah.
I'm always thinking of ways to sort of hug the community in and get them engaged. Because every time I meet someone, it's an opportunity for me to see, you know, selfishly how they might help the village. So I'm always trying to help, you know,
Talking about $300 here, right?
couple $100 to get a banner up that we can put up just so we're identified and people know where they can meet us.
That's fine. I won't be under that thing, but I don't mind
It
having.
might make shade. If we design it properly, it might provide us a little shade.
That's fine. I don't have a problem.
Commissioner Hammelberg?
I mean, if we're cutting expenses from the commission, I don't see why we're putting it in there. I'd rather see us each have a shirt that says we're a commissioner, and I'd be willing to pay for that myself.
Yeah, that's coming up next, I think.
Mayor?
I don't think we need that.
Okay.
First of all, it's too many tents. Did you watch how much work it is taking those things down?
Yeah.
At the last thing, that's,
Want us to do it.
The next item is object code 48 promotional activities. And I apologize. I called it purchase polos for acting commissioners, 150. It could have been either ID tags or polos. I just feel personally as staff, a shirt is a lot easier for you all to keep track of instead of a very small 2 or 3 inch name tag that could get lost at any point. So I think a polo,
Something to identify us again.
yeah, I think a polo with the logo and saying commissioner underneath and your
You
name.
use now for polos and whatnot.
There's a company that we use and we have a catalog, so
And how much are these polos?
it depends on the brand. The ones that we usually purchase are about $15 to $20
So
each.
why can't we purchase our own polos?
It's just a request here. so
Yeah, no,
you can-
I'm for purchasing my own polo.
Well, then let's hook us up with the people who do it so we can do that. And they should all be kind of standard and that's fine with me.
Okay.
Art, would you be happy with a sash or a tiara? A sash, a tiara? I'm just trying to stir the pot a little bit, you know.
you're using some of your big salary now. I won't be wearing the shirt.
Exactly.
You know, it's okay.
Okay. Next, we're moving on to the administration department.
We finished commission. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the first request is in Administration Object Code 31, Public Communications. The request is that the contract should be canceled after December and reduced in the budget, which is a $17,000 reduction.
Have we really gotten our money's worth from this company?
Well, that's kind of my point for putting this on, and I understand what the theory was, and they, when we hired them, remember, it was through the end of 2022, which overlaps fiscal 2023 for the months of October, November, and December. So initially it was, we had a couple of projects to have them work on, a driveway brochure, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting, solid waste brochure, I think maybe something for freebie, or did freebie do the freebie thing?
No, they redid it.
They read it. And then I understood that they were going to make some templates that would then be used for regular ongoing communications, which Mario, I guess, is that what Shantae is using for the village emails that go out that look nice?
On the constant contact, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Like the ones we got today about the election deadline, that's one of those?
Yeah.
Okay. So I kind of, I'm not certain that it has elevated the amount of the level of communication about ongoing things anyway. And I think now that we kind of got through that first hurdle and we have some templates that formalize them and make them look a little better and give us a format that people are used to seeing, it did accomplish a bit of branding there for us. I think we should run the contract out through December and pay them what we owe them for October, November, December, see how much we can get out of them, because it's not on a job basis, it's on a get it done basis. So get what we can get out of them and then not renew the contract and save the rest of the money. So it would save $17,000 from the administration budget if we ended it at the end of their contract, 3 months into the fiscal year. What would be?
What will we do with that $17,000?
You don't have to spend it.
Oh, I know.
It goes,
but
well,
I would
it'll
like
be
to
back.
spend it
There are
if I have
requests.
it.
There are requests
for
coming up too. I think Mario has a list of things to spend money on.
Okay.
But at the end of this, I think we're gonna have a bigger conversation. Is Paul, by the way, while we have this conversation, he's kind of doing a plus and a minus, right? So at the end of it, when we're done here, he'll say, okay, now you're this much ahead or behind, and then we'll wrap it up.
We're
Yes,
both
sir.
keeping notes, but yeah, he'll be able to do that a little bit quicker than I would. Okay, so we'll started with Hammelburg. So Commissioner Kennedy, you are a yay
For
for reducing
contract at the end of December and say,
reducing it 17,000. Okay, Mayor,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez, Commissioner Hammelburg.
Not really, but
It's okay. You can be in it.
no, say your no, we need to hear no's too, and why?
I just think it's good to have more communication, and the more the better.
Next is Administration Object Code 48, legal advertising. The request is to reduce the legal advertising by $1,000. And just to give you, it is currently budgeted at 4,000, so the request is to take it down to 3,000.
What have we spent year to date through the last audited month? This again was mine, guys, and it's just me trying to chip away all over the place wherever I can at this point. I'm just looking at things that appear to be inconsistent. This is one of the ones that I'm bringing up for conversation because it appeared to be a little off.
The actuals at 2,300 and change, but historically you get pretty close to that 4,000. I don't encourage reducing that placeholder at least.
Yeah,
And
I would.
if that's,
I would just recommend, last fiscal year 21, we spent 3,822. We have a lot more meetings now between July and September.
I'll pull this
I
for
wouldn't recommend.
consideration unless somebody wants to pick it up and run with it.
Okay, thank you. Administration Code 49, other charges, reduce the charitable donations by $2,000. Which currently there's two non-for-profits that we have budgeted, which is the Pelican Harbor and the North Miami Senior, each one with $1,000.
So and this again was mine to bring it up for us to discuss, because when it comes to charitable donations, we're basically a charity ourselves, right? And for us to make a charitable donation on behalf of everybody when everyone may not, it may not be their charity of choice. And I don't know much about the seniors charity, so I'm going to be honest about that. Pelican Harbor, I think a lot of people support it on their own, and I think that's great. And I happen to think they do wonderful work. But can someone give us a little bit more perspective on the senior charity?
Been able to find out anything. I did go to the senior thing. I was invited by North Miami to go to their senior breakfast, and I did go and met a lot of people. But I didn't see anybody from Biscayne Park. And I don't know anybody in Biscayne Park that utilizes it. I genuinely don't know.
I don't know either.
I've never had any outreach, and I'm certainly one of the senior citizens in Biscayne Park, so.
So last time we were talking about this in one of our meetings, someone said that they did service several residents in Biscayne Park. I don't know who, or I don't know anything. Is there any way that we can contact them?
I do. Now that you say that, I recall that, Art.
Somebody said that.
I think it
don't
would have
know.
been Isa. I think ISA may have contributed something on that topic. Would that make sense, Mario, that ISA
I
would
think
know
they have a
something
luncheon
about
or
that?
something, but it didn't seem like something that we really had to contribute to.
We've-
I really.
Yeah, we've
I
tried.
recall they used to rent a van for activities historically.
Yeah,
Is that
but
what the
I've
We had
never
our own
heard,
van and then he,
you're right, they did say that at one time they used vans, but we don't have a van and we're not buying a van, so we're renting a van.
Judy, do you
I
know
don't
anything
know
about that?
anybody that,
At one time, I know they did some outreach and I know they did, I don't know if it was Meals on Wheels, but other services for elders. I don't know if that's continuing. I don't know anything about it right now. Especially with COVID,
Yeah.
I haven't heard any of the seniors I know have any outreach from them.
Well, look, $1,000 is not the end of the world to us, but it is $1,000 and we're looking at a budget. Every 0.1 millage change is only $29,000. So every little bit here and there does help. I'd love to, if we're going to support something like this, I'd like it to be quantified a little bit better for us and justified and have someone here saying we need the money because,
Exactly.
I'd like to.
and here's
keep
how it
Pelican
benefits your
Harbor.
community.
I would like to
Pelican
keep
Harbor.
money to Pelican Harbor as well. I know when we had the episode of the foxes that were dying, I reached out to Christopher Boykin, their director. He said if we had a body of an animal, he would do a necropsy for us. And in the end, he ended up calling me and telling me that they had found, somebody had found very close to the park, a dead fox, and they had done a necropsy and it had died of canine distemper from people not vaccinating their dogs. I guess it was passed in the feces to other animals. And so I think that they do an amazing service. They've rescued animals for me.
They rescue animals from the village.
They rescued animals from the village. They've released animals to the village.
And they do come here and participate in our events. They had an owl ambassador at the last event.
Right.
And they involved all the kids when they were releasing the birds. They had a bunch of the kids at the rec center come out and look at the birds and talk about the birds, and they had all sorts of things.
Well, if we were going to try to support one of the two, I'd be happier supporting Pelican Harbor because at least I see something from that.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, and I'm not saying we don't get something from the senior thing, but it doesn't seem like anybody here knows. It just rolls over in the budget.
The North Miami Senior Citizen breakfast that I went to, which was at I believe that was at the Miami Shores Country Club. I only saw North Miami people other than political people coming in, a rep from Carver's office and that type of thing.
So why don't we keep Pelican Harbor? I'll just say, I would be happy keeping Pelican Harbor and reducing the senior.
it looks
thing
like
to zero
there's-
this year and see if next year they can come, and engage a little bit.
If
Rotation.
they want some money, they should come and say hello.
Okay, so I think there's consensus on that.
Pelican Harbor, we keep.
Yep. Okay.
Get rid of the old people.
The next department is police and code. And so the first request, and let me just double check.
Before we pass, is that the end of administration?
Yes.
I may have add a couple of things
Sure.
real quickly. Let me finish my notes here. But keep Pelican Harbor. Okay, I have a couple of things under administration. You answered one already, Mario. Okay, so there is a part-time salary in there for finance. It's Patty who is helping you with the finance stuff, and she did a lot of the stuff for this, right? So my question is she does she impact FICA and all the other things that salaries impact, or is she a 1099?
She is a part-time, but doesn't receive any benefits because of the amount of hours and all.
Okay, so it's the salary and
Just
that's
the
it. She's
salary.
not impacting in any other places in the budget that any other employee impacts. That's what I wanted to know. Okay, so this is the part of the budget where we have the grant writer, and this is we have what, 10,000 in there for the grant writer?
Correct.
Yeah, and this was a conversation we had at the first budget workshop, and Alex Bernhard was here, and it came up a couple of different ways. And I'm wondering if maybe we should have a conversation about getting some more money into the grant writing budget if we can.
That's why I asked the question, can we talk about this $18,000 that we're cutting? Because I was going to suggest, but Then you all said, no, let's go through the list and see where we are at the end.
Yeah.
And then we can go back.
Well, he wants us to do it department by department. So he's done with administration. So that's why I said, let's talk about it. So you want to talk, go for it.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, if we're gonna eliminate that company that we're going, then I would be in favor of moving that money over to the grant writing. Try to get more grants and more money coming into this village.
I would go for that.
Ginny?
I agree.
That's money to me, better spent.
What-
Well, it's money that turns into money, right?
Exactly.
You hope that there's revenue on the backside. Mario, just as a reminder, in the fiscal year that we're ending now, how much did we spend on grant writing altogether? Or will we have spent when we're done?
And we'll end up spending 10,000 because,
And what was our gain?
God, let's see,
We got an $85,000.
grant. Then we have
That was for sustainability.
sustainability. He also helped he helped me on writing for the state appropriation as well.
300.
But even if we just count the 8,500 by it, I mean, the 85,000 by itself, I mean, that's already 8 times the amount.
We got 85, we're 75 ahead. So
We've also applied for
the rec center money.
$50,000. No, he didn't help with that one. $50,000 for freebie, and we just reapplied for the second year again. So that's already, if we get the DOT, which I don't foresee us not getting it, that would be 185 at least.
I would be happy for and I don't know that Art right now, we need to say, take that 17 and put it over here. I think he just wants us to go department by department. At the end, they'll tell us where we are, and then we can kind of figure out how we can get there, because we could also have a millage conversation and all kinds of stuff at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we can do that, but I mean, if there's already a number that someone's thinking, if it's just
Well-
moving the 17, or if it's, a more roundabout number, we already know that, and we can kind of tell you where we are with the millage afterwards.
At
I'd like to
least
start
double
with
it.
trying 30.
Oh, I was going to say at least 20.
If we
I'd
start
be
with
okay with
30
30.
for now and put it in there as 30, at the end, we're going to come back and see where we end up. No, up to 30, add 20 to it, take it from 10 to 30, to add 20,000 into it, which is kind of that 17, and then see where we are at the end of this entire conversation. And we may have to go back and say, okay, now we do this,
Now, Mario, let me ask you a question. That money doesn't necessarily have to be spent, right? I mean, that money is there. How does that work? As far as, the billing?
Would, for anything above 10,000, we'd have to do an RFP. And the way that the grant writers work is on a retainer basis. So more than likely, you would be spending the whole amount.
So it is
There
a
would be
bit of a
more
gamble.
grant opportunities, right? There would be more grant opportunities.
We would have to see what the response to the RFPs are.
So you'll put an RFP out saying we have $30,000 to spend on grant writer. You would put the parameters in place, and that could include also using them to help locate grants, not just write the grants.
Yeah, I mean, our grant writer already does that. to
Okay,
begin
so
with.
it's kind of an all-in service. Okay, so you'd put an RFP out to spend 30 grand, and then it's up to us to, well, not us, but you, to manage it and make sure we're getting some bang for our buck, and that they're applying for appropriate grants to fund things that we want, that we think we might have a chance to get, that we have matching funds for. You kind of balance all of that before you set them loose on it.
Correct. Yeah, unless the village is happy with the vendor and they want to waive procurement and just increase the amount with this vendor, that's always up to the commission. I know when I was getting the 3 quotes for the grant writer for 4 or 5, which is what we're receiving now, for 4 or 5 grant applications, the two other vendors were quoting into the 20s. So doing an RFP, I'm not sure will net us double the amount or anything like that. It just opens it up more on the competitive side.
Do you-
I can forward the commission all 3 quotes so that you can see, and we can definitely raise the budget and then have that conversation later. And that's not a problem. But remember, procurement wise, up to 2,500, I'm authorized to spend. Between 25 and 10,000, I need 3 quotes, but I can enter without doing a formal RFP. Anything above 10,000 is usually an RFP unless the commission is going to waive procurement.
So we could approve it for budget purposes tonight and come back and readdress it later. Because just
Right.
because it's in the budget doesn't mean you're spending
Correct.
it until you come and we have a discussion about how it's spent. Is there a possibility at that time to discuss doing it on a job basis rather than on a, not contingency, what's the word?
On a project base.
We do it on a project basis. So you say, okay, we'll give you $2,500 on this project that you're going to go chase down for us and 5,000 on this one because it's a bigger get at the end, or do they only work on retainer?
So the way that procurement would work, if it's going to be the same vendor, then anything above the 25 or up to that $10,000 mark would have to be through either commission vote to waive or procurement. I can't have multiple projects going to the same vendor just to bypass procurement.
Okay.
So on a on a project basis, if the RFP or RFQ calls for that, then yes, because then we did the competitive process. But no, I can't just
Set it
go,
up that way initially.
right. I can't go, hey, I'll give you 2,500 for this one, then I'll give you another 25, then I'll give you another 25, because all of that adds up over the year, and that will be a violation of procurement.
Okay. So tonight we don't have to decide. any
No.
of that.
No, we
Plus,
can,
I think a lot of those guys, I mean, you give them X amount of dollars, you want so many projects and they go dig them out for you. I mean, if you're going to have them dig out one project at a time, I think it's going to be very counterproductive.
it's not just one project at a time.
No, it doesn't
Commissioner,
work.
yeah, it's the way that we've been working, they've brought me several grant opportunities. But when we start reading through and we start seeing the feasibility, we wouldn't match. Because we don't have XYZ ready, right? And so it's just working through some of that. But yeah, we can budget. So to just be clear, and it looks like we have consensus to raise the grant writer budget from 10,000 to 30,000. Okay, and everybody's shaking their head. So Paul, make that note, 30,000 for grant writer.
Couple of other things under a minute. I'm sorry, Art, you didn't understand that's what we were doing. Do you want to say anything else? Add anything else to the administration? No, while we're in this budget? Judy?
No.
Ginny? Okay. The log cabin
Just for
walkway.
clarification, I'm sorry, just to clarify so I get it right, that's a plus 20,000, correct?
Correct, yes.
To a total of 30. Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Object code 46 is the log cabin walkway. So I just want to discuss that again real quickly with you guys. It's in there for 20 now. And did I understand last time, Mario, that we don't think 20 is even enough to do just the walkway portion of it? Because what we looked at from the planner was walkways, lights, all in project. And that 20 is definitely not enough for all of that. It was to try to get the first step in to at least create to make the ADA compliant and to get some walkways out here so people can walk carefully at night. That was just the first step. Is 20 enough for that portion of it?
The initial estimate for the parking and the sidewalk area, I think that should be covering. However, anything to do with the electrical and the lights or anything like that, it would not cover.
So you think 20 is enough for the hard surfaces, the installation of walkways and the redoing of ADA for the parking?
I believe so. I mean, we'd have to again procure it, and we'll know what the real cost is once we get the
Okay, I just wanted to hear you say that you think it's enough because it just looked, I mean, what do I know? But I looked at it, I'm like, is 20 enough for that? You can't even put a decent driveway in for 20.
Yeah.
And we're talking kind of like a sizable thing here.
Well, that was my thought. I mean, my driveway today would probably cost 20, so I kind of get concerned.
You're concerned that it's also not enough?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I would
If
rather,
the commission will just give me a moment, I'll bring back up the plan and.
but I mean, I would rather we put in a little bit extra. If we don't use it, then it's not money spent.
Well, at this point in the conversation, we're just kind of having that, we're just seeing what we might like. And then at the end, Paul and Mario are going to tell us, here's where we stand. And at the end of the meeting tonight, we're going to have to go back and probably adjust some things or discuss a millage. And one of the things on here you have, Judy, is increasing the millage rate, which would help us achieve a bunch of these things, maybe all in one fell swoop, So we have options at the end of the conversation after we go department by department. And if memory serves, guys, was the walkway just poured concrete? to match kind of like the perimeter of the building? Is that what it was? Like stamped concrete of some kind to try to mimic the porch?
It was just concrete, yeah. It's connecting from the parking lot, a sidewalk to connect to the ramp so that it's not in the middle of the street.
'Cause over here, it's something to do with the space, but more to do with the pathway, right? And less to do with the ADA space itself. Is that correct?
It's a little bit of both.
Just so we don't forget it, Barbecue has voiced concern that we are getting our paving stuff too close to the roots of the oak tree. So that's something that before we finalize everything, we need to try to remember to address.
We do. That has to be looked at. And when we had Calvin Giordano here, is it Gianni or Giano? I always feel like
Giano.
Giano. I feel like I'm calling him the wrong name. He did say we had options for the placement of the pathways, that they showed it a specific way, and that if it turned out the tree roots were an issue, they could just be placed in a different area that would accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, and he described that, no, there is no conflict with the roots of the tree because it is further enough away.
You have to be careful about the lights also with the neighbors here. And we
Well, the
have to
lights
start
aren't even
We're
part of
we're
this
not
budget.
even addressing the lights on this,
We're not addressing the lights, and Miami-Dade code is strict, and there's nothing we'll be able to do about that.
and the lights are going to be like 80 grand.
Are going to be,
I think he said, didn't he say they were going to be about
So
80,000?
the cost proposal, I'm looking at the presentation he gave us. I don't see the cost estimate on the walkway, so I can definitely confirm, but 20,000, I believe, is where we were talking just on that end. With
why don't we
regards-
just leave it then? Since I brought it
with
up, why don't we
regards
just
to the
leave it there?
lights- Yeah, with regards to the lights, for the electrical poles, the initial estimate is about $45,000.
So then why don't we just leave it at 20 for now? And Mario, if you could confirm that, that just to make sure, because I'd hate for you to be ready to do the project and you find out, oh, it's going to cost us 30 and there's no other money in the administration budget that I can move. And then we have to be figuring out what we're going to do. So why don't we just keep it the way it is for now, and Mario can always report back to us. Is that cool? Mario,
Yeah, that's fine.
you guys good with that? Judy,
Fine.
Judy, do you want to discuss putting some extra money in it now?
I'd like to put the money for the lights, in, but we're not going to do that without doing some other major things. And the reality is we've got so many projects in the loop right now. I think it's prudent to kind of focus on what we've got going now with the drainage and roadways and the pump and all the other things we've got going on, the parking over at the rec center. I think, you just can't do everything at once.
Okay, that's the last thing I had under administration. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to police and
I'm sorry, real quickly. I saw that you put money in there for the resiliency guide under our promotional budget. It's kind of broken out. Is that what we discussed with Alex when we said we would, the money he requested for that project, we would put in our budget? It's in object code, Paul will say it before I do, 47
in the commission?
in the administration.
Well, yeah, that's where we
I should have
had.
said
money.
ours, yours. I should have said yours, not ours.
Yeah, in the administration, we already had a line item and we talked about that could already be accomplished
Right.
in the budget.
So I saw you
just
broke it out.
separated the
That's-
line item
Okay.
to be able to indicate it there.
Beautiful, thank you.
So the request is to reduce the travel and per diem in the police budget, object code 40, reduce it by all my notes just changed, by 1,500. Object code 40 for police. So it's travel and per diem. It's currently at 2,500. And so it's to reduce it down to 1,000.
Okay.
And what does that cover? What,
That's usually covered for any of our officers. It's usually the chief or the commanders that will go to a conference or two throughout the year. And they'll make those decisions whether they go onto the conference based on what's going to be talking about. I know the chief is going to one coming up soon, and that's why you will see year to date 953. That's for air and hotel going into it. That doesn't count for any of the meals or anything that would happen during the trip.
So why are we cutting it?
The request was to reduce it. So would you be open to reduce it down to 1,000?
The chief or anybody in the police in regards to the cut?
I think he's at that police officer that died. That was a close friend of his. Jose. Something.
No, I'm asking if we got feedback from them about the possibility of putting this. Did we get any feedback from them?
I know we've cut it in the past already down, and obviously with COVID in 2020 and 2021, chief didn't go anywhere. So it just kind of depends on, it would just limit whether he goes on to the conferences or not.
I don't have a problem with him keeping up with things, so I don't see a reason to cut it.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
I'm fine with leaving it there.
Mayor,
500.
Mayor,
Ginny?
You're fine with the 25?
Yeah.
100? Okay. That's good.
Mayor, would you like to reduce it or keep it as is?
Reduce it.
Okay. And Commissioner Kennedy?
I'm trying to reduce everywhere we can in the budget. So if we could reduce it somewhat, maybe not the full request, but if we could cut every little bit helps. So if we could reduce it a little bit, but it sounds like we're kind of at a stalemate, so it won't get cut. So it's
Okay. The next line item is Object Code 55, Education and Training. It is currently budgeted at 5,000, and the request is to cut it by 1,000 down to 4,000.
I agree with that.
You know, listen. I hate making budget decisions with not having the input of the people that it's going to affect. And I don't know if that's a normal thing. But you know, we're making decisions here that can impact them. And I personally don't like to put myself in that position where I'm going to make a decision on education and training, and it's something that they actually need. And we're going to say, oh, I'm going to cut it 1,000 or whatever we decide. You know, I have a problem with that. So that's
I agree with you. And I mean, technically, these guys put their life on the line out there. I mean, we've had officers get in car accidents. We've had other situations happen. I think if it costs us $1,000 more to educate them, it's less than $1 per household. And we should give them whatever we can give them for support, for supplies and for education.
Mario, is there no way of like having the different department heads talk to us in these kinds of meetings where, you know, we can, I mean, certain things that we can talk to them about and just get their input on?
Sure, I can tell you that this is the line item. Not only do we pay for the accreditation membership, this is where we also pay for various weapons qualifications and stuff that each of the officers need to do. Currently, the chief is working with Miami Shores and North Miami to increase some of the active shooter training that they go through. They want to do something more specific to localized, whether it's here at the church or one of the churches in Miami Shores or North Miami or any of the schools. So we bumped it up for 1,000 to be able to accommodate that in there. Knowing that he's trying to get that program underway with our sister cities next to us. We don't have an exact cost because they haven't gotten to that point yet, But that's what they're working at. So we put 4,000. We could reduce it by 1,000 and put it back to 3,000. Currently, through July, we've spent 1,500. There's still some more qualifications that they'll have to do. And I know this year, I think we will be caught up for this year. So we'll definitely have some savings there. So if we want to cut it down to 3,000, it is possible, but we asked for that increase for the anticipation of, hey, we could be developing a new program with that the village hasn't done with our neighboring cities. Yes, we have, I believe we moved someone from part-time to full-time. We hired some part-time officers, and I think we've come on with some new reserves as well.
So here's my position on that. I agree with everything you guys said. I really do. I really honestly do. But police is what percentage of our total budget, Mario? 41%?
Yes.
41% of our total budget. The vast majority of those expenses are pretty hardly fixed in place that we can't really impact in a real direct way. And we have a responsibility to look at an overall budget and keep this community safe and balance all the other things that need to be done. It's 41% of our budget, and wherever we can try to trim a little tiny bit here and there within that budget, because we can't impact salaries, not that we would want to necessarily, but we can't. A lot of these things are contracted. So it's just kind of like the red stuff that Mario puts in the budget. It's like untouchable, untouchable, untouchable. And those things exist in every budget, but in the police budget, they're really significant. And we just gave them another officer and another car in this budget. So it's like some big asks were granted to the department, and it's 41%. So trying to get them to trim a little bit here and there and figure, and at a certain point, some of us have had jobs where at a certain point, the boss says, figure out a way to do it.
They're
Trim that much and figure out a way to get it done. And by the way, you still have to get it done. So figure it out.
But there's already been trimming here.
and they're
Already trimmed.
and
We
they're
also added an officer. Look how much we added.
and they've got 2007 cars. I mean, they've got cars that are.
It's another.
I mean,
But we are, I know,
I'm sorry. I don't agree.
balance of that is they are getting a new car and another officer, which they
And
told us
they-
the village needs, and we said, okay.
And they need training. And I don't think, I don't think
What's
that,
their total budget? Look, I'm not going to argue the point because I'm going to lose it, but what is their total dollar budget right now for the police department? It's 41% of our total budget. So what is that? 131.3 million?
Currently, it's at 1.5 million.
1.5 million. So to say trim $1,500 out of a $1.5 million budget because we're trying to save here and there all over the place. I mean, come on, it's not a huge ask. We're not saying no to the officer or no to the car.
Yeah, but
So,
that's-
look, I'm going to lose this one. It's okay. But these things need to be said during budget hearings that we have a responsibility to ask the hard questions and look at the numbers. That's all
Yeah, but
We've
you
okayed the car.
don't really
I'm
have,
saying. We've given
But-
them the big
Okay.
ask.
I understand what you're saying, Matt, but you don't really have the right answer from, because, we're talking about education and training. And again, I don't disagree with you. I completely agree with you. I would love to see, to slash every department and obviously, and save the village money. But when it comes to education and training for the police department, I don't really know what I'm looking at here.
I
So for me to say, oh, 3,000 is enough when it's not enough and they're going to
I
need
understand. I
four.
understand they can move money within their budget, anywhere within that budget. So
Right.
within their $1.5 million budget, if they needed another $500 for that training that we cut, they have a $1.5 million budget. I'm sure the commanders over there could put pen to paper and figure out where the $500 would come from the water cooler budget or something. I don't know, but
my
we-
reason
but we
for
only have
moving
certain
here
places.
was our safety. My reason
get
for
that.
moving here was our police department. And I think for a lot of people, they look at our crime stats and they look at our police department, and that's why they want to be here. We are a very, very safe
I
community.
understand that. But cutting a couple $100 out of a
Well-
$1.5 million budget, I'm not certain is going to make a huge difference.
I won't.
Okay, let's
vote
move
for it.
on because
Go ahead.
clearly it's the consensus is not to do it, but we have to ask these tough questions of ourselves. That's why we're here.
It would have been a lot easier if the chief was here and I could have asked him.
Yeah,
I have to say. I agree.
Nick was supposed to be on for I'm not quite sure why he's not on, so we're trying to contact him now. If he comes back, we'll bring it back up for you all.
Thank you.
We do the capital project, they study. Did we discuss that? or-
No, not yet, ma'am.
Okay.
Is there anything else within the police budget? Okay. I don't have any requests regarding the code department since it's under the same line item. Is there anything within the code department that anybody would like to bring up?
Thank you for hiring a new code officer.
Yay.
Okay, Public Works would be the next item. And just want to double check. Parks. Okay. The first request is object code 44, rentals and leases. And so the request is to reduce the equipment rentals by 500.
What is that budget, Mark?
Object code 44, rentals and leases. It is currently, just give me 1 second. So many numbers.
45.
Water cooler?
Rentals and leases, 44. You
Yeah,
said.
44.
44.
Right. It's
And water cooler.
right. We're currently budgeted for 4,500. Right.
How much have we actually
Yes.
spent? Because,
It looks off there.
yeah, because the year to date,
One of the line items changed in Public Works, Mario, and I got turned around in that. No, maybe it's not that one. This is where the flatbed we're not doing again.
Correct. We're not doing the flatbed.
Yeah, so this was just an opportunity to try to trim a little bit. Look what we spent on this stuff last year, and we don't seem to be spending it. $800.
So for equipment, it's 400 out of 1,500.
Total between
And the-
equipment and water cooler, we're at $800 towards a budget of, against a budget of 4,500, right?
Yeah, that seems awfully low
I
on the
know,
water.
see, something
cooler.
is odd here, and that's why I said this is certainly a place we can cut. We've only spent 800 through the end of July, and we have a $4,500 budget there.
Yeah, it looks safe in that respect.
Well, it looks more than safe is the point. Because if this is something that's spread out evenly across the year, then that would be, what would it be by the end of the year, Paul? It would be from 8 to 12, it would be 1,200 by the end of the year, right? And we have 4,500 and we have 4,500 budgeted. So by the end of the year, we're going to spend 1,200 against $4,500 budget. There's some extra money there, a couple $1,000.
I'm trying to see if maybe some of that water cooler was.
Charged out wrong.
Yeah. I think it looks like the water cooler could be reduced. It's usually based on how many gallons you are using. And so I know recently the delivery was just being made here and then we would give some over to Public Works and stuff like that. And we had to kind of clarify for them, but it looks like the water cooler could be an area where we can reduce, because even on admin, out of 1,200, we spent 824. So it looks like that's more of
That
the
will be-
realistic.
That will
Right.
be, that's.
That will be
never makes
killed
sense.
out, right?
Yeah.
So for Public Works, and at the end of the day, we can always give them some of, we'll give them from either here or admin if need be.
It looks like we might be able to reduce this. It's currently $4,500 for object code 44, and we might be able to reduce that to $2,000 and cut $2,500 there and still be good.
So is the request just on 500 or is it a greater?
I think we could cut it. I mean, unless Paul, I'm not understanding something I'm reading. We spent year to date, and it's only the top two items now. It's not 44.1 is gone, right? The vehicle
Correct.
leases.
Right.
So it's only the equipment and the water cooler. Year to date, we spent $800. That'll be 1,200 by the end of the fiscal year. We could cut $2,500, leave $2,000 in there and still be pretty rock solid. So I think we could cut $2,500 from this part of the budget.
Let me look.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think they are.
Commissioner Hammelberg?
I mean, if we're not using it, we can take it out, but I just, make sure that our guys aren't out on the street without hydration.
Absolutely. Mayor?
Yeah, I think the historical use of that line being deleted, the small remnant part was probably not calculated. And so I don't see any problem reducing it significantly.
So there's $2,500 we just found,
Yes.
guys.
Okay.
Light bulb for the outside the log cabin.
So I do see Commander Nick on the line. Does the commission want to ask him regarding the education and training of what our guys are doing or anything like that? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Nick, perfect.
Yep.
Thank-
sir.
Thank you for joining us. The commission was discussing, we had budgeted $4,000 for education and training. Part of that was for the accreditation, but so I think the total amount was 5,000, if I'm not mistaken. So 4,000, we had upped it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, we were asking for an increase on that line item because you all were working with our sister cities for additional training opportunities. Can you maybe just dive a little bit into, without giving any tactical information away, can you just go into a little bit more into what education and training stuff are used for police?
Yeah, I got you, Mr. You guys. The accreditation is part of it. That's a $1,000 thing. The training, as far as there has been a 3-year perspective, which has gotten extended over COVID, which is the FIU training, which I'm pretty sure everybody on the commission has been a part of since we've been here. So we're working with that. But as far as training aspect and the new things that we're working on, we are working with currently city of North Miami, Miami Shores, El Portal, I want to say Bay Harbor Islands, and it's pretty much just going through the tactical shooter objectives and things that are coming. Again, I'm going to try and be as vague as I can. The tactical shooters, the schools, obviously, we have the one church that's right inside of our jurisdiction. However, we have Miami Country Day, that's just to our south in Miami Shores, and we have WJ Bryant just to our north in North Miami. So these are things that we need to be a part of. We need to be a part of training with them. So there is a nominal cost to it. Any type of training, which FDLE training covers regions. So if training gets put on by Miami-Dade College, or it gets put on by the actual county, it gets put on by City of Miami, or anybody that is a technical training institute, they're classified as Region 14. Region 14 allows us or anybody in Miami-Dade County to apply and go to that training for free. So if I may be wrong about this, but I believe it's Region 13 is Broward County. So if one of our officers wants to go to training there, they'll be put on a standby list. And if their classes do not fill up, our officer will get in and Region 13 will still pay for it. If the class fills up, Region 14 doesn't cover that, we would be responsible for the fee, which is that's really not ideal for what we want to do. Miami-Dade County does put on a lot of services throughout the year, but anything that is Region 14 is covered by us. But the increase in expenditure is, as we are seeing You know, throughout the country, globally, things are increasing. You know, we want to be prepared. We want to be able to train as much as possible. And I think that's where we're seeing the increase.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, or do you want to revisit lowering that amount?
Yeah, I mean, if I was too vague in that, I'll try and go in. I'm trying not to go into too much tactical.
No, Nick, I think you
agree.
were
We-
fine.
We like it.
Okay. Sorry.
No problems. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay. So going back to Public Works then, there was an agreement to lower the rentals and leases by 2,500 total. So that would put the total budget for that line item at $2,000. Paul, was that clear?
Yes, sir, I have it.
Okay, perfect. All right. The next one is with regards to, I think that kind of covers both of those. Yeah. Okay, so the next is object code 46.2, which is the landscape maintenance section.
Actually, I had 46 on there first, Mario. Did I cross that off?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we just go back to 46?
Sure.
Repairs and maintenance. The equipment repairs I wanted to talk about. It doesn't look like equipment repairs year to date were at like 6,300. If that were paced out equally across the year, and I don't think it's one of those items that is, but if it were to be, we wouldn't be spending the $10,000 that we have budgeted. So I'm just thinking, I'm wondering if this is an opportunity for us to try to trim a little bit as well.
See with that, especially with equipment and maintenance, right? You just don't know. And, you know, you may,
Historically are at or above that.
yeah, so you may need it or you may not need it, but it should be there because something breaks and it's significant and then boom, you know, you're.
I'm fine with it. I'm bringing up everything that we might discuss along the way.
Is that going to include the new lights that you were talking?
No,
Maria?
no, this is maintaining the
Landscaping?
equipment that they have.
No, I was talking about the signs.
No.
Landscaping.
46.02, which is the landscaping maintenance. This is the request is to increase funds by $12,000.
So this is mine again, guys, and it's actually a little bigger conversation than that. So it's just this budget generally. This is where we pay for plants. And some things were kind of consolidated and moved around. There are some things that were zeroed out and the money was all lumped under one thing. And it just gives them some more flexibility. But the net is a decrease across the department. I mean, last year it was 111 was the budget, and this new year will only be 95. So it's a decrease of, what is that, $16,000? Yeah, 16 grand altogether. So we have a couple of opportunities here. One is the village has these entrance signs that are quite nice, in my opinion, that were made actually and installed before they were installed after I moved here, but they were purchased before I moved here. And we have 6 more of those, Mario, at Public Works. Is it 6 or is it 3?
No, it's
Might be 6.
6.
4, 5, 6, and they're there like just kind of sitting there, you know, rusting away. And they were never installed, and they were purchased with the intent of being placed in specific locations in the village and other entrances. And then the project kind of like slipped away and people kind of forgot about it. So they're beautiful signs there. It costs some money to install them. There's some electrical needs. There's solar for the lights. And then landscaping as well. But it all comes out of this part of the budget, the installation of the signs. You can see that it's still there. It's 46,202 is the landscaping of those signs. So I would just like us to have a conversation about that. And I know we're not right now finding where all this money would come from, but the village spent a nice chunk of money years ago on these signs that are sitting there rusting at Public Works. They're quite beautiful, and there are places that we could use them to mark the entrances to the village. I personally think anytime we kind of like stake our claim that you're entering Biscayne Park, it's a good thing in a lot of ways. It's a branding opportunity, tells people to slow their happy asses down if they know about the reputation we used to value so much. And we also have opportunities possibly at the rec center to install them on one or more of the corners of the rec center. That it's another opportunity there. The signs are already purchased. This village spent a considerable amount of money on them back in the day, and there they sit rusting. The other opportunity in here is just to put more money generally into landscaping. We have a newly formed Parks and Parkways board. And by the way, I think I got another person to volunteer to join that board. So we'll be up to 4 here in a minute. The last iteration of the board put together a nice plan for 115th Street that Public Works or landscaping firm in conjunction with Public Works started installing this week. The plan was to extend that median design to farther down 115th Street and to then move into other parts of the village. I personally think landscaping is one of the things that separates this community from other places. People move here for it and recognize it as one of the things that makes us so special. I don't ever like to see a decrease in our landscaping budget, sort of generally speaking.
So
There's my
if I-
preaching. That's my soapbox speech on that.
that's a great speech, by the way.
Thank you.
So I see what you're saying. Okay, so we have $111,000 budgeted, right? We've spent 34 of that. Correct?
Yes and no. Some of the money was moved over for other purchases that we did
another-
throughout the year.
Somewhere else in the budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was, well, we're showing the pines, the 30,000 there. So they've listed that there. We have some of these projects are going to be invoiced now in between October and September. So you're going to have a higher amount that is used. We also have tree trimming that is being done. So we'll have close to 30,000 spent there as well. I don't believe we'll hit 111,000,
Right.
but we will have a considerable amount spent.
Right, so we had budgeted $3,000 for the entrance sign landscaping, and obviously that wasn't done, right? And it wasn't used.
What we always do in last year and the year before was, even though these are individual line items for log cabin landscaping and that money was just pulled together and used for whatever. The year before this current fiscal year, it was towards the tree grant. That was our matching portion of it. That's what it was used for. So all I did, instead of having an individual line item, I pulled that money into tree planting and capping and landscaping, which
So
kind of covers everything anyways, right? So I just kind of tried to pull that money into one line item instead of showing 12, and they get moved around anyways.
So do we know the cost? Do we know the cost to actually install one of these signs? What it would cost?
No, I would have to see if our guys would be able to do it. I don't see why not. The only thing I can think of is just the materials and costs, because you'd have to do a concrete footer to be able to install that. You might need to rent a piece of equipment so that it can
Backup.
hang,
Are they heavy?
things like that.
They're heavy?
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
all like
All metal.
metal.
Steel, aren't they?
Yeah, a steel plate with a patina effect, so it already is rusted.
So
Exactly.
$500 per sign?
No, I don't have a firm number. I tried to dig around and I couldn't find anything. And I don't want to quote a number here that it's like I'm the expert on this, but it's a couple $1,000s per sign.
What?
It's a couple $1,000s by the
Yeah.
time you get it installed.
Not if our people do it.
There's a light post, a
electric.
solar light that's attached to it that lights it up at night, and then the landscaping as well. So it's a couple $1,000s. And I don't know how much they cost initially. Does anyone have any idea what they cost?
I don't
I have
recall.
no idea. But it is, and I don't want to quote, I have a number in my head that I don't want to say out loud, but it's a couple $1,000s per sign, pretty easy, I think.
So you're talking about $15,000, $14,000, $13,000?
I
for-
thought there were
No,
only
all the signs?
2 or
Not
3
for-
extra
No, no, to install
signs. There
all
were
the signs.
4?
We did all of them, and maybe it's not all of them this year, maybe it's some of them. I'm sorry, Judy?
I thought there was only 1 or 2 I didn't realize there were 4 of them that we
I think
had.
there might be 6.
They have locations already?
There were locations when this project was initiated a number of years ago, it was before I moved here. all the locations were determined and approved by the commission. The whole thing was approved. Let's go do it. And I think they intended to stage it out. I'm sure Mario could sort of find some documentation on that.
I doubt it.
Or maybe not.
I doubt it. I know we have one on Griffin, we have one on 9th, we have one on 10th, and we have one on 9th and 107th on the south end.
Yeah.
Up here, we have
That's a different.
around the Coral one, so that's completely different.
You have to have.
On the north end,
I think we have 5 or 6 installed now.
on the north end, we'd have to find where there's a median in the middle for it to be installed. Some of our avenues don't have that
Right.
by.
Or right away, because, and I think locations were all determined for them back when it was
Yeah.
initially done.
Yeah, but unfortunately, some that were installed for example, the one that's installed on 9th and 107th, the county would not approve that location because it becomes a site issue when
Always
coming
wondered
in.
about that one. That's.
Yeah, so it should have been further back, right? They've decided they'll look the other way.
Okay.
But so it's not just as simple as going in and saying, oh, I'm just going to plant it here.
Oh, understood. I think a lot of that research was done at the time. To what you're saying, apparently not as well as it might have been. But my point is, I think we need to fund this project. And I'd like to see those signs get up. And when I presented the rec center parking idea to you guys a year ago, one of the suggestions, not a hard request, but one of the suggestions was that there might be an opportunity to use 1 or 2 of those signs there, possibly here at the end of this median here. We have them, get them in place somewhere. This might actually, this was Mario suggested this to me, to have one down here at the end of, right here at 7th and 114th to kind of mark the log cabin, the village hall, entering the, the municipal
area.
area.
No, but what I was told in the beginning, because I questioned why we had these signs that were not up, they said that the places that they had, in mind to put
Mhm.
them up,
Yeah.
that whoever was doing it went and said, do you want this on your property? Because you don't have to have it on your property.
Oh.
And so, of course, the people said no.
Wasn't
Well,
presented
that's what I
exactly
was
right.
told.
Yeah. So, well, the signs are there. We have other places that we could use them, and
And also, they could be, why can't we do them in-house? When you're talking about that concrete slab.
I don't know the answer to that. Albert may.
It's not a really big thing. I don't know, the wiring for the electric, I can see.
Well, It's solar. That doesn't. need
It's
wire.
solar, so it's not
It's
like.
a
a
light you
hard wire.
connect and you connect to the light, to the sun.
I mean, I don't know. why
Albert would
we
have to answer that.
Do it in-house.
We would save on the labor, but we'd still have to buy the
So-
Materials, the concrete.
materials and rent the equipment.
And then some landscaping to go around it.
Well,
They're beautifully landscaped, and there is a preset kind of pattern that they use for all of them for landscaping. So that's already thunk out for us,
if it's gonna be a couple of $1,000s per sign, I would be comfortable with budgeting a sign every year and,
Or 2 signs.
and letting it go there. Well, you're talking about $6,000 for 2 signs is, I mean, if it's gonna be a couple $1,000s, that's a lot of money. $6,000 is a lot of money for signs.
I always
I don't-
thought we
I'm-
should have our signs up.
Yeah.
Everybody.
So I came up with 12,000 based on not all the signs getting up, but a couple of them getting up for that. If you want to cut it back and we see what we can get done and do a couple next year and a couple the following year, that's fine. I just want to move forward on that project and get it to completion. The village made a big purchase and there they sit, it's a shame.
But if we budget for it, then let's spend it on that and do it. Instead of just having it on the line here and then pulling it and doing something.
Well, okay, we have Mario here now. He's actually getting stuff done. Like
I'm
he was
trying.
last, where We budgeted stuff and then we just considered it part of our savings program because nothing got done. So that was the one request. And the rest is I just want more medians to be worked on. I have to go look at 115th Street. I got some compliments from neighbors already who said, wow, look what happened on 115th. Where'd that come from? So I'm making sure that the former Parks and Parkways members are getting the credit for that. And I just don't want to see a decrease.
So
in
is-
overall funds.
So the request is 12. Is that a number we want to keep? Do we want to reduce that? Does someone want to propose a different number?
Well, I think 12 is too much. And to do it all in 1 year, I think is too much at this stage.
What would you be comfortable with, Art?
If 6,000 will get us 2 signs, I'm good with 6 this year and then 2 next, and then another 2 next year. That's
It's
fine.
a start.
Yeah. That's fine. I'm good with that.
I'm okay with that.
Good with that too.
Mayor, you're okay?
Yeah, I'd go along with the 6,000.
Okay, so we'll increase the landscape budget.
Now, while we're
Christine, do you-
sitting here, I'm looking at an item that says medium sod pilot program. I will tell you, we have tried sodding our mediums over and over and over and over again since 1996.
That's cut.
Zero.
The
that's-
problem
that's
is,
cut.
yeah, we don't have any water to keep the sod alive.
That's where we-
Yeah.
So,
It's at zero.
okay.
It was something that we were trying this year and it's just,
Got to put sprinklers.
Mario, before we pass the entrance sign, so we agreed to, for 6 for now, to
Correct.
placeholder. Is that something that you'll just move forward with and determine a location, or is that something you'll come back and discuss with us before you would put the signs in place?
I'll do some research and see if there's already what locations were previously discussed. If any former commissioners who may be listening might already have that, we'll try our luck,
Anderson,
maybe.
get out
I'll
your
be
junior
there.
Or two,
filing
who knows?
cabinet.
That's where we get all our information.
But I'll do a little bit of research, and if not, then I'll canvass the area again with that in mind and look at a couple locations and see if that's something.
Ask Dan Keys. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a copy of it because he was chair of Parks and Parkways. Barbara Kuehl probably would. And then our own in-house Iron Mountain, Bob Anderson.
No, as
He has a
part of
file on
the, as part of the renewing of the ADA and the walkway stuff, somewhere along here, around here would be nice to incorporate one of those signs. It would be really part of that,
Yeah,
that would be
that's a neat
nice.
idea when you're coming into the log cabin.
Yeah,
all police
exactly,
station.
right.
Kind of marks our municipal
Yep.
center. I
Yeah.
think it's nice.
The next request is object code 52, which is operating supplies. And that is to reduce the uniform allocation by 1,760. So I think I need to go all the way back up to see where it's currently budgeted at.
That's me again, guys, just looking for places to try to trim some money. Mario, I actually, you and I-
Red. It's red.
I know, Mario, you and I discussed this and you explained that they have to be replaced a certain number of times. If you just want to move past that, it's fine.
Okay. Object code 52, operating supplies, janitorial supplies. And if you give me a second. It was to reduce it from 3,800, reduce it by 1,500, so about 1,500.
Yeah, this was a conversation we had about, remember, there was janitorial kind of custodial things in different places and you were trying to figure out if they were all, like, some of them were overlapping or.
No, and I apologize if I gave you the wrong impression. This was actual like supplies, the chemical cleaning supplies and stuff that are used. All of that gets purchased through Public Works.
All goes through, that's what you were going to find out.
Correct.
All goes through Public Works for everybody.
Yeah, we had another janitorial line item in parks, but we zeroed that out because it was like $1,000, but it was meant to be in case we needed a deep cleaning, but we zeroed that out. Yeah, okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cleaning company that does here and Village Hall, do they use our supplies?
Yes,
They don't bring their own.
no. That is it for Public Works unless there's any additional comments or.
I have one other comment real quickly. Mario, you and I talked about this and I'm not sure what the resolution was. I think you were going to look into it a little bit more. Patching of roads. There's an item in here in Public Works that looked like it was road patching materials, but you weren't sure. And I just want to make sure that our in-house team has the materials it needs to do the patches that it can do, because we have a lot of patching they can do. And it looked like a very small amount. We weren't sure if that's what it really was. So have you determined that we have enough money in
That
here for them
was-
to patch roads?
Yeah, that was with regards to the road fund. And one of the things based on our conversation, and I looked into it, all those expenditures were being done within Public Works. And so what we did is we moved those line item expenditures from the road fund and we transferred them into the general fund to continue the purchases through here. So we do have that. Once they make their purchase, they purchase that, then they go in, once it runs out, they'll order more as needed. Sometimes it's not as available because it's asphalt. So it's not as available as we would always like, but they kind of run through it. These cold patches, it's never, it's not like the hot patch when you lay down new asphalt like what they did on Griffin. We will fill it in, and then after a couple rains and cars going up, the same hole is going to keep opening up. So there, we're constantly using that. I believe we are going through that.
Are we solid on that? I just don't want you.
I think,
guys to run
yeah,
out of-
I think, no, we don't run out. We just keep ordering through it. Right now, we're close to the 14,000 and we should be almost 15,000. So we're on track. And then if anything comes up, I have asked them, hey, let's try to pay a little bit more and see what we can, not pay more, but pay more attention and see if we can pick up the pace on some of that. I know one of our workers created they rigged up one of the carts where they can have the stomper in the back of the gator or the little golf cart that they drive around, so that it can now be a one-man job as opposed to a 2 or 3-man job. And so, bless them. They're trying to figure out ways to do more of it. But yeah, I think we're fine on that.
I just want to make sure that's funded enough. So if we're done with Public Works, then it looks like we gained $2,500 there and then added 6. So what's the net on that one, Paul? Is it $3,500 we added to that budget?
My running total is, for all budgets, is plus 4,500 at this point.
Okay, cool.
The next item that I have is we'll go to parks, and then from parks, we'll go to the individual funds. So in parks, the request is object code 48, which is the special events. And it is to reduce the back to school / national night out event by $1,000. And so it's currently budgeted for 4,000. And the request is to move it down by 1,000. So move it back down to 3,000.
How much did this year's National Night Out cost us?
I don't have those with me right now. We won't know until, I won't have the official amount until after August.
'Cause, yeah, year to date is listing as
People
300,
go to this national night out, back to school.
quite a bit from what I
I think we had it maybe about 100, 120, something like that. And
It's 48. Is that what we're looking at?
yeah,
What'd you say?
I'm looking for the object, but 48.
Oh, okay.
They said they had quite a big turnout.
yeah, we did have a good turnout. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a big turnout. Where did that money come from, Mario? I thought you got some money from somewhere else for that.
No, we budgeted for National Night Out at 2,500. The year before, Commissioner Hayman donated $5,000 to start off the event. And then this fiscal year, we budgeted 25. And so we combined the back to school and the National Night Out into one event. So we were able to kind of use that. I know ESA also got some sponsorship money from Great Waste. So that's helps as well. Everything did go up. And I believe he also ended up spending some of the concession line item 49 into the event as well. So looking at, based on what we were looking at, we said, okay, let's put it at 4,000 since we're combining both events together. But the request in front of the commission today is to bring it down to 3,000.
Is so the back to school event, we're going to call it back to school, but it will be the National Night Out event?
Yes, it's one line item.
Okay. Let's hope that everyone-
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's what
line.
Okay. Because it looks like we're not, if you look at the budget, it looks like we're not going to have a National Night Out event next year.
And I apologize. I should say back to school / national night out.
I'm fine with that.
We're going to decrease that by
No,
$1,000?
we're going to keep it.
Gonna keep it? Okay.
That's under-
We told,
That is, that's the Arts Board's event.
that's the self-funded, they're gonna.
It's self-funded, yeah.
There are three of, so just so we're clear, the three events that we decided to fund for them are the three at the bottom that are not yellow.
The jazz, the youth music festival, and the Earth Hour. Okay, so that takes care of everything there. We're gonna go into the individual funds now. Capital projects. And the request is to add the traffic study, data collection, and qualitative study for 50,000. It's a request for capital projects, so it's its own separate fund.
I've talked to a lot of people, and I haven't gotten anybody that thinks we should do another study. So I would be.
Did you talk to anybody who thinks we should do something about traffic?
It's going to cost too much money.
But has anyone expressed a desire for us to address the traffic situation in Biscayne Park?
Yeah, speed bump.
Okay, but the point here is that we're very limited as to what we can do if we don't have the data to point to. We, for us to use anecdotal evidence to make decisions about traffic overall, we're extremely limited in what we can do. We're limited basically, from what I've been told, to speed humps, which aren't even speed bumps. It's the plastic things that are movable. So we're really limited to that. So
Everybody would like to see things done to make it right. What are we going to do? Flyovers? We really can't do traffic circles most places. And
says who? Hold on, says who?
costing us close to a couple of $100,000 to have a study to decide if we're going to do that. And I don't know where they would do that. So I
Well,
really am against.
I know that you don't know where we would do that, and I don't either, but that's what the experts would tell us after we have data in front of us. That's the whole point. I don't know where stop signs can and should go. I don't know where a roundabout can be put in. I know other communities do them and they work because I go around them. I know that permanent speed bumps are put in places. I know that some communities have been successful in getting road closures and dead ending streets and doing all kinds of things. I'm not a traffic expert. I don't know.
Either am I.
Point here is,
So know that it's
Mac,
a
did you
lot of money.
look at the 2008 study?
yes, I did.
There's a lot of recommendations in there and obviously weren't done.
Exactly.
For whatever the reason.
And a lot of the reasons were because the residents who lived in that area did not want it.
So
If you talk to the
Not my
people who were on the
backyard.
commission at the time, I think what you'll hear is it kind of just petered out, that they kind of lost sight of it. They did a couple of things and they lost sight of it. So if the challenge is we would need to use this and move forward, then the challenge is on the commission. Those of us who will be commissioners at the time, this would be a year or two down the road before choices would start to be being made, right? Or farther even. But the onus then falls on the commission to follow through and do the job. So, and if past commissions didn't have the kind of the oomph that it took to kind of deal with residents and make the choices that some specific residents might not be happy with for the greater good, that's what commissioners do, right?
So-
That's our job.
So geographically, I mean, environmentally, geographically, we haven't changed, right? We're still the same.
Right.
We still have the same streets.
Number
We
of
still have the
houses.
same everything.
Number of houses are the
Yes, we're all aware that traffic has increased. I don't think that that's going to be we're going to be like surprised, right? My personal feeling is that every location that was an issue in 2008 continues to be an issue in 2022, with the exception of more traffic, right? We can all agree to that.
So you're saying that and none of the places that were identified as problem locations have corrected themselves
I doubt it.
miraculously?
I
Correct.
think,
Well,
I
we'll
think
probably,
it's gotten even
none
worse.
of us are experts on this, but I bet we are all correct on that one.
So I think it's even gotten worse. So I think that we already know what areas are the areas that are affected. I think we have the 2008 study. I think that we pick that up and we start trying to do something with the 2008 study. Like I told you in the last meeting, my concern is spending $50,000 or whatever that is. And then petering out or not following through. Or not have the will to spend the money necessary to do the things that we need to do. That's my concern. So I think
It's a valid concern. It's an absolutely valid
So I
concern.
think that for me, I'm way more comfortable with actually picking up. I read through the 2008. I didn't read, every single line, but I can tell you that there's a ton of information there. There's a lot of recommendations in there. It's a very detailed study. I think that we pick that up and we start moving towards doing something with that study in the streets that have already been identified as a problem in 2008. I'm sure they're the same exact streets that have problems today, just more problems. So we already have the information. I mean, as far as the geographical areas that
I think part of the challenge, Art, is the date that's attached to that information. And Mario has indicated that it's too old to be used to be
with the
be
county.
statistically valid.
Yeah.
And we have to go get someone to allow us to make changes. Here's the other thing so we all agree that maybe things didn't fix themselves since 2008. And things certainly have gotten worse in terms of the volume of traffic, and some people would argue the speeding and other things, but that's what a study would show us. But here's what has changed. While Biscayne Park has not changed geographically and our street layout and the number of homes, the areas around us have. More commercial areas since 2008. Think about the commercial areas that have sprung up around us that are causing people to move from point A to point B. They have a reason to get through us to get to where they're going. None of that stuff down on Biscayne Boulevard even existed back then. And all those people are flying past your house to get there, right? And to get from there back up to there, right, on the other side of us. The other thing that's happening is the city of North Miami is increasing its density rather significantly and rather quickly. So there are several developments that are already underway, and there are several that are approved, and there are more that are in the approval process that are bringing mid-rise buildings directly outside of our border and mixed use that is going to bring more commercial traffic. And it's just more. That's my concern. It's not what we were in 2008. What we were in 2008 is not what we are in 2022, and it won't be what we are in 2024 by the time this study were to be done, right? So we're talking like it would be another year or two easy before we have any results back. But one of the things
Why would it take 2 years to get results?
because we're already a month away from fiscal 23. So by the time we get it, Mario said it'll be a year more when I talked to him about
It'll
it.
take wait a minute. It'll take a year to get the
He has
results
to
of
procure, he
the
has to
initial
put an
study.
RFP out. He has to, it's not just a matter of hiring someone to do it.
No, I know, but once we have someone to do the study, it's not gonna take a year to get that information.
No, the data will be fairly quickly within a few months. Then you have the other part of the study. So the way when we started the discussion back in, I don't know if it was May or June, this is really the only component that you can do separate from the traffic study itself. Because all the other things that come into the traffic study, it's part of one project, and you'd have to pay that vendor within that timeline. So if you're going to split it up so that it hits multiple fiscal years, this would be the one that you would do first, wait another fiscal year, and then put the rest of the money on a different fiscal year.
And here's another issue that I have. We don't have actual costs associated with this, right? We're
Associated
with any of this stuff. We're
the
guessing.
studies, Mario got it, have you
He
seen? Got estimates.
I haven't
He
seen.
gave us ranges.
No, yeah, but those are estimates, right? I haven't actually seen anything that says this is how much this is going to cost.
Well, until he puts an RFP out, we're not going to get that. We have to budget for something so he can even do that, because once we put an RFP out, then we're moving forward with the project. It's like anything else.
And then what about the second part of this?
That's something we would have to address the next year and the year after that. Look, I know this is a bite out of the apple, but if we don't take a bite, we're never going to eat the apple. It's that simple. And I'm really concerned about what's happening directly outside, especially our northern border. Our southern border, it's commercial stuff. Our northern border, it's residences, mid-rise residences with many, many, many more cars that are all going to pour through our village. We're a sieve on the northern end of this village. Down at your end, we come to a point. It's one road and it's kind of nutty down there, I know. But up here, we're a sieve, and it's just people come pouring through. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. And I'm afraid that if we don't take some action on this, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, people are going to be saying, why has this village never addressed this? What is going on here? Why would we allow this just to get worse and worse and worse? Look, for now, what we could do is, excuse me, we could budget for it. And we can then have a bigger discussion about it. We're not spending the money by budgeting it tonight. We're budgeting for it, so then we can have a bigger conversation and figure it all out. But if it's not budgeted for and we decide we do need to do something and we should do something and we have the will to do it, we won't be able to do it for another year until we put it in the budget again. So we're not writing a check tonight. No one's handing a check to Jenny and saying, sign it, you know? We're just budgeting the money and it's in there. So we
By
can
budgeting
move
here, it
forward.
Might affect the millage. And that's another issue that we need to discuss, right? So.
That's another, so for now, if we put it in there at the end of this conversation tonight, we will see how it affects, if it possibly would affect the millage. And then we'll also pull up that chart and see what the millage change actually means in a dollar to somebody.
But without, none of us are experts, but you can see of all the neighborhoods that are doing their own traffic studies, I'm sure, these roundabouts seem to be the thing that everybody is suggesting.
But our streets are very narrow.
Well, we have some
Traffic.
of the avenues
you
probably could
imagine
accommodate them.
The screaming and yelling that'll go on because it'll be the same Nimbus thing, not on my corner. You're gonna,
Okay. I can also imagine people being really grateful that a commission is moving forward to take steps to solve a problem once we've determined what the problem is and an expert has said, these are the problem areas and these are your options to fix them, because then we know it's not, it could be a roundabout there and a stop sign there. We don't know until we start the process. So all I'm asking is for us to have the will now to put a number on a spreadsheet to say it's in the budget and then continue the conversation and try to figure it out. But if we don't put it in the budget, then it's definitely not happening until October 1 of 2024 at the earliest.
well, I just,
I don't have a problem with that, waiting a year. We've got so many things going on. You can't do everything at once.
And I don't know of one thing that's more important than,
I think
and
we know
road
what the
safety.
answer's gonna be. We have a
I don't think we do,
traffic
Ginny.
problem because we
Yeah.
have too many cars.
Well, I think,
What's the solutions?
well, and that's what this would lead us to.
But every
Okay,
time
but Jenny, you can't say roundabouts are the solution because everyone else is doing them. I'm not gonna say that. What do I know? It could be a roundabout and a traffic study might indicate a roundabout is gonna make it worse because it's gonna send, I don't know.
what-
None of us are,
but what
none of
would
the
you
experts in that.
recommend On narrow streets, what could possibly?
Speed bumps.
Speed bumps,
We
stop signs, dead ending
have those
streets,
rubbers.
roundabouts, all kinds of, who knows?
I think.
I don't know.
In that, the old report, didn't they have areas that they suggested doing one-way streets? I remember hearing that.
Oh, and the neighbors were up in arms
Yeah,
over
it
it.
was suggested
I was
in
here.
The old study.
I don't think it was
They
in
Not
had
in this, no.
one-way
I'm not.
Anyways,
Recommendation.
I
all I'm-
would recommend we leave it for next year's budget and get through some of the things that we've already committed to.
I agree.
I think it's a disservice to the community to put that off for another year, because what we're saying is your safety on the streets is not important to us and the traffic is not a concern. And when you, look, I walk these streets many days a week and I talk to people and it is absolutely the number one complaint I get about Biscayne Park is the traffic in this village, the speeding, the amount of traffic, the people that are flying through, especially in the mornings when they're taking their kids to Miami Country Day School and they're flying through this village. It's the number one complaint by far, hands down, number one.
I'm not opposed to doing a new study. So to be clear, my concern, and we'll go back to the same thing, is that will we have the fortitude to move forward once we have the study? And will we be willing to tell the community that we're going to spend whatever it is, $100,000, $150,000 on a follow-up study? Okay, which is what Mario said that we're going to need in order to actually go to the county. So if I vote for this, I'm going to be clear, I'm going to move forward with this.
Oh, look,
I mean, as far as, I'm one voice up here, but I'm not going to vote for something that I'm going to put on Mario's desk and it's just going to get.
and let it sit there on a spreadsheet and.
It's just not, it's not realistic.
Look, and again, for right now, all I'm saying is get it in the budget so we can do it when we're ready to in fiscal 23. But it sounds like maybe this should be something that we discuss with residents in a more formal way before we move through and lay out exactly what the plan would be. Look, folks, all we've done so far is put aside this much so we can get started if we decide to. And if we don't, that money rolls over into our savings account. We haven't spent a dime. But then that enables us to have the conversation with residents and say, what do you want us to do? Have Mario lay it out for everybody and get them to engage. Between the 5 of us up here, we can get people to show up and join us in a conversation, and then we'll decide. But again, we're not writing a check tonight by putting it in the budget. We're merely having it there if we decide to move forward. And if we don't move forward, it rolls over in the general fund like other things. But I don't want to wait another year to start a very tough conversation. And there might come a day that we have the information in front of us and we've got to say to residents, look, guys, the problem is serious in these areas, and this is what we need to do, and we have the will to do it, and we're finding the money to do it. That's a conversation for then. For right now, it's simply put the money in the budget so it's there when we decide to do it in fiscal 23. And then all we're tasked with is move forward, Art, in the conversation and decide if we're going to do it. And the answer might be no. The answer could be no. But right now, if we don't put it in the budget, the answer is absolutely no, because there's not even a conversation to have. That putting it in the budget enables us to have that conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Dollars?
I'm for it if, like I said, if we are gonna have the fortitude to move forward with this, and I'm not gonna accept no as an answer. That, I mean, there has to be something that we're going to do. Not just spend $50,000 on a report and do nothing with it other than identify new problem areas or more traffic in this corner or that corner. That's ridiculous. But I'm not opposed to doing this because I think it is important for the community, obviously. So I'll vote yes.
And really all we're committing to is having that conversation. So
And once you get up to that point that you have your study, if it costs 50 or 60 or $80,000, then you're going to be into it for hundreds of thousands.
So Commissioner Hammelberg, are you,
it's just a conversation. We're not writing a check, Judy. We're not writing.
Yeah, but we're budgeting $50,000 for something. You wanted to cut police education.
By $500 out of a $1.5 million budget. I think they can swallow that. Let's move on. I vote yes. Jenny, are you a yes or a no? I know we're not voting. I'm sorry. I shouldn't use the word vote.
I just need Commissioner Hammelberg's opinion one way or the other.
The idea is great, but I've seen it go to X amount and then nobody has the willpower to go beyond it over and over.
And maybe you'll
over.
be a better commissioner than the commissioners back then, Judy.
It wasn't. the
Maybe you'll have the
commissioners.
will.
It was the people of this village didn't want to change it.
I'm not sure that that was the case. I'm not certain.
Oh, I remember. I remember those meetings.
Okay, moving to the building fund. The request is on object code 52. And that is to reduce the overall operating supplies by 800. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe staff had done this as a recommendation. Give me one second. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, we did already, staff already did recommend in the last workshop last week to reduce that amount down to 500. So this is an old request. Do you want to still reduce it further?
No, it was a request based on
Yeah.
the first version. So you're saying it's done.
Yes. Yeah, it was reduced from 1,500 down to 500. Code 55 is education and training. We have 1,000 in there. The request is to reduce it by 500, so lower it to 500. If I may, this would be one area where I'd like to ask that we keep it. Our building clerk, one of the benefits that the village offers to its employees, if it's budgeted, if they're going to school, there's X amount of dollars that can be paid back. And so we do have our building clerk who's going back to school for public administration, which is relevant to the job that she has. And so I'd like to be able to offer that up to $1,000, depending on the grade and all that kind of stuff that goes into that policy. So that's why I left it at 1,000. But the request before you is to reduce it to 500.
I'd like to not reduce it if they're going and doing their education.
If it's going to be used, I'm fine with it.
Our staff. What?
Okay. Commissioner Gonzalez, same. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, Commission. And
Under capital, am I on, under capital projects, the other item that I brought to us was 826 Northeast 121st, the demolition, and you marked it green. Did we agree to put that into the budget?
I'll have to take a look at my notes. Green more as there was already a consensus on that item.
Oh, that we came to a consensus, not that it's a
Right.
positive choice. Okay,
Correct.
okay. Because I didn't think so, but I
It
thought green meant we're doing it. Okay.
No, it was just that there was already a consensus on it. Okay, the last items refer to revenue and listing of the revenue. Everything else, we have a consensus. So on revenue, and there's only one item, so we're on the very last one. It is, but it's a big one. So revenue code, object code 323, which is a solid waste franchise fee. The request is to keep the franchise fee in place, which comes out to about $82,000. No,
I thought we discussed that we never came to a
It's-
consensus. So,
no, it's coming
I
before.
thought we broke it down to quarterly. for
That
$100,000.
is coming back to the commission with regards to amending the Great Waste contract. I believe, I don't know if the commission would just like to, the commissioner who made that request would just like to jump in and give the assertion. If I misconstrue your intention, I apologize. I believe the request is to leave it in there with the hopes of not amending the contract.
That's what I would prefer, yeah. And I know we were all involved in, Willie attended the meeting and we all got involved in a conversation with them, but at the end of the day, I would still like to.
Okay, I was in favor of doing that in the quarterly. Of
That
our
was a compromise.
franchise fee.
Yes. Right, from 3, whatever it was, to,
Yeah, but those come down to more of the expenditure. This is with regards to, do we recognize the 82,000 in the revenue? And so correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, because you might be able to better explain it, but if we recognize the 82,000 in revenue, we're essentially saying we're not going to waive the franchise fee. So that takes off the amendment from there, because we can't recognize the revenue and then not collect it, right?
Right.
So it is essentially saying, yes, we're going to recognize it in our revenue for our budget, which and I know Valerie's on. Valerie, should this be an item that is skipped and maybe addressed at the public hearings between first and second public hearing, as it might be a voting item at the next commission meeting? And I'm sorry, let me see if I think the security
She's
settings.
there, but
Thank,
she's on
no,
mute.
thank you. Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I'm sorry. So your question was if they're precluded from having the discussion now because it's coming for a future
correct.
vote? No, I mean, it's sunshine. They can have the discussion. I mean, obviously they can't vote on it now, but
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
where's that showing? I'm sorry, I don't see that. Where is it?
So it's not being shown as current revenue right now.
So it's not a part of the overall budget current.
Correct. And so the request is to make it as part of the budget and indicate that we will receive the franchise fee for solid waste.
On the revenue.
On the revenue.
Spreadsheet, it's 323.1, Art.
And it says 0.
It says zero.
Correct.
We budgeted, he's budgeting for 0. And my request for at least this discussion is to put the $82,000 back in as revenue.
So I'm a little bit confused because I thought we had already discussed this and we had come to a consensus. Yeah, so why is this coming up again here now?
The, the commission never voted on the item, and we had to go back and negotiate with Great Waste to make sure that they were okay on the proposal that the commission was making, which was the quarterly. So now in September, it will come back to you for another vote, or for a vote, because we haven't voted on it.
They haven't come back to us with yay or nay, or they're happy or they're not happy or whatever.
I'm still talking and writing all that out so that they can evaluate that and come back, and then it will be on your commission. It will be on your commission package.
Here's the problem.
So the question is,
If we put it in here now, then we're going to show a loss of $82,000, right? If we decide to move forward with,
if you put it as revenue now and then you decide not to, then your revenue would not be accurate because you're not seeing it,
exactly,
right? And so you're going to be short
right.
for any potential
If we decided to
additional
move forward with
expenditures or
it.
something.
That will also affect the millage rate because now we have an additional 82,000. Yes, because we'll have an additional 82,000 in the
To
budget.
make up the revenue.
So we won't have to raise the millage to offset some of the additional costs that we've talked about this evening, correct? So if we add an $82,000 into the budget,
It's a fantasy.
Paul, could you maybe re-explain it? Maybe it's not as clear.
Yeah, it's a entry as an expense versus the entry of a revenue. So you have zero there, so you don't have to pay the missing money because you're not showing it as a revenue. So if you show it as a revenue, now you've got to pay out the expense on the
Yeah.
solid waste fund. So it's a wash in that respect, but it's real money in terms of your total non-ad valorem and budget. So in theory, it's really the difference between going from a 9.5 to a 9.7 millage rate. It's almost identical.
So it's just the timing of this is awkward because here we are having a budget workshop to discuss this. And Mario's in the middle of trying to negotiate something with them. He doesn't have, it's not a meeting where we could vote on it anyway, but they'll come back to us in September and the budget's happening simultaneously. So it's just awkward timing and it's all how it's all coming together.
yeah, but we have to come up with a realistic millage, right?
Right.
So
So if we don't put it in there, I mean, if we keep it at zero and then we decide not to move forward with it, then there will be a problem in the opposite regard that we'll be recognizing $82,000 in additional revenue.
I'd rather do that.
It doesn't.
Paul, does-
Whatever decision we make tonight, Mario, does not impact the choice that we make at the September commission meeting, correct? This is for budgeting purposes.
No, because we would have to change the budget between the first and the second hearing prior to
It would
the
impact
September
our
now.
budget, but it would not impact the choice that we're allowed to make as a commission at the September meeting.
Correct. And that's why I asked our attorney if
I
the
like what we
conversation-
had discussed to waive the franchise fee quarterly.
but if we're going to discuss millage, right,
Yeah.
this does affect.
So then you're
So-
saying keep it at zero and let it be a positive problem in September if it's a problem at all.
Rather than a negative problem.
Well, that's why I
And
wanted
you
to
have
this
two
conversation.
ways of paying for it throughout the year. If it's okay, I'm sorry. You either pay for it as a budget revenue decision in your millage rate, or you pay for it out of reserves, or either assigned or unassigned. So you have those options, no matter what you choose.
And either way, either of those choices impacts residents because it's their money one way or the other anyway. We've already kind of been discussing pretty openly that we don't want to touch our reserve. Actually, we could be setting aside some as an emergency reserve. So as long as we all recognize that this does not impact the choice that we make in September, but either way, we're going to have to readjust some budget.
So it looks like for now, it is keep it off the books. Let's see what happens after the September commission meeting. And that's the adjustment, and it will come before you for another time on September 29th.
Would it make sense at all, because we're discussing having this thing kind of be prorated on a quarterly basis, would it make sense for now just to put a partial amount in there? Is there any benefit to that for budgeting purposes? So whichever way it impacts us later in the budget, it's not as big of an impact?
Paul?
Put in-
I follow the logic in terms of budgeting, but in terms of really having a record of your decision, I would think it's an on-off decision. It's either you're paying the solid waste cost with the franchise fee, or you're paying it in, you're splitting it. It seems a little cloudy
Yeah.
in terms
I'm
of
just thinking
policy.
because that's kind of what we'll be doing on a quarterly basis, right? We'll be sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
you're putting
Alright.
yourself.
Go ahead.
No, yeah, you had to.
So it's, okay, then leave it at 0. I was just
Okay.
trying to figure out if that helped us at all, kind of looking at numbers as we go.
So Paul, with that, we started with a positive $13,000 balance in the budget at a 9.5 millage. Can you tell us where we ended up after the various cuts and additions?
Your trimming is down to a plus 7,500.
Okay, so we went
So your
from,
surplus with this budget would be 7,500.
so we're still at 9.5 millage, and there's still a surplus within the budget of 7,500.
Correct.
This doesn't sound,
Math in my head as we went, and I thought we were going to be in the negative.
yeah, me too.
Now, how did we put that addition into the additional 20,000 into the,
But you also
Grants.
cut from the communications.
17,000 communication.
So there's a wash there. So it's really only a $3,000
Started off at
increase.
plus 13, that's right.
okay.
You started off at plus 13.
Okay.
So yeah, so it looks like we're looking good.
So there was at least one commissioner that wished to be at more of a 9.6, so increasing the revenue by 29,422. Is the commission comfortable where we are now, still having a 7,500 surplus, or do we want to increase the millage to 9.6 on this budget, or even go to 9.7, or decrease it?
What would
From
be the
9.5?
What would be the reason for the additional 29?
I'm just
He's just
saying.
laying out our options.
Yeah, I'm just giving the
No, I
commission the
understand, but
option.
I'm just asking the question. It's,
Well, the thought,
what,
the thought was that if we run over on any of our projects, then we're going to have to pull it out of our reserves. So my thought was to build a cushion in so that we have a little extra. And it goes into reserves if we don't use it and,
I think we have a little extra all over this,
All right.
to be quite honest. with you.
okay.
Since we're talking about that, though, I like having the big conversation because we can, right? The other thing that organizations do at this point in a budget, because this thing is pretty much, tightened up at this point. We've come to an agreement, and Paul's and Mario are going to bring it back to us.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I really do apologize. I realize I just missed one request, and it's a big one. And so I just wanted to throw that out before we continue the millage rate. In parks, object code 13, which is the part-time salary, we currently have budget about 50,000, and the request is to cut it by 10,000 down to 40. Yeah, and I apologize, Commissioner. I didn't see it.
Okay.
So if we did that, that's.
We would at 17.5, basically.
So, okay, so what is that, Mario?
Object code 13
Thank you, Art.
of the Parks and Rec part-time salary line item.
Parks and Rec.
Is that going to a specific person or?
No, we have 3 part-timers. One was just hired full-time, so he will be hiring an additional part-time employee.
Say that again.
No, they receive an hourly rate because they're part-time. They're not a full-time employee.
I'm sorry, you say what you said about the part-timers and one became full-time?
Sure. So one of our longtime part-time employees, Rafael, was hired full-time by the village
In a different department.
in a different department. So Isa is down one part-time employee. And he will be putting that out to hire for that spot.
Oh, I thought you said he was going to make one of the part-timers a full-time person.
No.
You're talking about Raphael,
Right.
full-time over in administration.
Correct.
Okay.
It's about, I think it's like $14 or $15 an hour.
$15 an hour at Amazon, right?
Okay, so Issa's cool with that? And you
Yeah.
are?
Yes.
I-
So it looks like there's consensus for that.
Yeah, while we're in Parks and Rec, I do want to discuss something else when we're done with this, though.
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
So Paul, that is a 10,000 deduction, object code 13 in parks. So we are a positive 17.5.
I'm okay. with
Correct.
that.
Back where you started almost. Perfect.
Actually, a little better.
Yeah.
Okay, and I apologize, Commissioner Kennedy, you were speaking and I interrupted you.
Because I would never do that. Okay, in the rec center, it's just a conversation, just to put a thought out there. In the rec center, and I'm gonna look here for it, so I can point you in the right direction. I think it's right at the very end. Okay, if you look at item, object code 63, it's the last page in Parks and Rec. It's where the parking service is budgeted for 50, the awning over the tot lot, some electrical upgrades, and then the foundation project that we budgeted for Jill. I'm not suggesting any changes here, but just an idea for us to put in the back of our heads and move forward with possibly in the future. Keep the awning in there. The awning is a 40,000. It's not a hard estimate they got. It's a pretty decent estimate. He thinks that Issa got from somebody who would come and replace that thing. Someone who came to repair it, I guess. Mario said it would cost you this much to replace it, but it's not an estimate that we can hold anybody to. But let's say it is. It's 40 grand. The idea is to keep it in there exactly as it is, but to not move forward with it real quickly, and instead bring the foundation in to talk to us and give that to them as their first big project that we would request from them. We had this conversation at the last meeting, and Mario said, yeah, you can bring him in and talk to him about whatever you want to talk to. I love the idea of giving the foundation something that's a bigger bite out of village life, and that they could take and fund for us. And they would,
It's furniture. and stuff.
yeah, they're doing that. That's already in their budget. We already approved all that.
That's already been.
Yeah, that's already done and designed and, I mean, it's not done, but it's designed and ready to go.
The other worry is this thing is tattered. It's been repaired and repaired and repaired. Are we going to wait until something happens? These are our children.
Yeah, I know. I get that. I'm talking about a money thing here. So I'd love the idea of giving something to the foundation that's a big project for the village and discussing with them, please take this project on and go out there and get some real money from companies and organizations and figure out how you would want this project to be sponsored by businesses and naming rights, a plaque, whatever it would be. Let them come to us with the plan and send them out there with a project, something big to tackle like that. I would love to see the foundation. They do really nice stuff for us, but I'd love to give them something big and say, please do this for the village. We're allowed to do that. And they're allowed to go ask people for money. They could, and I'll make something up here, for a tot lot.
Do we want advertising on them?
They would come back to us and they would tell us what it would be, right? Let them come to us and discuss what it would be. But there are lots of ways to give people naming rights. You put a sign up and say the tot lot awning was sponsored in 2023, was sponsored, constructed with the kind donations from, and then let them decide the kinds of businesses they would go to. Kids. So if it's an awning over kids, kids are stores that cater to kids, kids are daycare centers, kids are private schools, kids are pediatricians' offices. Go chase down businesses that would be appropriate, that would like to have their name in front of the parents of a bunch of kids. I just love the idea of giving the foundation something big and meaty like that to take a bite out of for us. If we had the foundation working for us in that regard every year, where we were able to give them a project like that they could do for us, I think it'd be a fabulous thing. So I'm not suggesting we change anything here, keep it exactly the way it is, but that we use this as an opportunity to have that conversation with the foundation. And by the way, they can tell us to fly a kite. They don't have to do anything we tell them to do, ask them to do. They completely work independently of us, and they can say, nope, we're not doing it. See you later. Thanks for the idea. We're out of here. But it doesn't hurt for us to have that conversation and try to move that foundation in that direction where they do things like that for us.
Does anyone know how the foundation currently tries to get money? Because I've lived here 6 years. The foundation has never asked me for a penny.
I've given them money a
No,
ton
I'm
of
sure you
times.
have, and I have as well.
That's where my salary.
I have as well, but
I've never once been solicited. In other words,
Yeah.
there's never been anything on Nextdoor. I've never received an email. I've never received a flyer. Listen, and I would be happy to donate to any of these.
and
causes.
that's something that they could also ask residents to donate to. But the point is that the budget is villagers' money. Residents, that's our money in the budget. $3+ million is our money already. And the point is to go get the money from somewhere else. There are businesses who will be very happy to sponsor all kinds of things. And I'm in sales. My mind can kind of spins in the ways that they could help us in future years. The next year we want watering stations on the sidewalk around the rec center. I don't know, I'm making something up, but we give them projects and they figure out, okay, who can fund this for us? And they can become that kind of an organization for us in addition to what else they do for us.
So we'll find out if they're qualified.
Exactly. And you know what? We have the conversation with them once we find out if they're interested in doing that for us. I think they might be. I think, quite frankly, they might be excited by, they gave us a project and they want us to show what we can do. And then we'll see how they can deliver on it. And they would need some guidance from us. And maybe they come up with half the money. Well, half the money is better than none. But if we keep this money in the budget, it doesn't preclude us from not buying the awning ourselves if we decide, Judy, it's going to take too long or whatever.
Delays us, right?
But not necessarily. The sooner we have the conversation with the foundation, the sooner we can get them to work. But if we keep it in the budget, then Mario still has it in the rec center budget that he can use for other things in this budget, like the parking project that's right next to it. He could use that to do more in that budget.
So the two items that we do need the conversation from you all is, what do you want to do with regards to the millage and the 17,000 that you have as a surplus right now? And then two, which I think it's worth discussing, is the commission several months ago approved that during the budget process, when you guys get your first and your second readings, that the general fund balance, quote unquote, the reserves, will have a percentage that is allocated or encumbered or assigned,
Absolutely.
however you want, for emergency situations. My recommendation is to go with a 50% of the fund balance, which will, and today will be about between 1.4 and 1.6, just to give me, a good spread there, because I think it's 3.1 that we'll end up with or something like that, or 3.2. But I think the percentage wise will cover, based on what happened with Irma, where we had a $1.1 million recovery bill, we would have at least allocated out of 3.1 or 3.2. Paul, you probably know the number a lot better than I do. It would be at least 1.5 million reserved for an emergency if we have it within the fiscal year. It also means you still have 1.5 that the commission can use for projects to help offset different budget issues or anything like that that might come up during the year or anything. But at least is a commission comfortable with 50%, or does somebody wish to have that higher?
Can I ask you some questions before we start tossing numbers?
Sure, Paul, you might as well unmute yourself because you're going to probably be the one answering.
Okay, so we're talking, it would be, let's just, for argument, I'm going to use X percent that we would determine. It's X percent of the reserve, not of the budget.
Correct.
Okay, because the other option we discussed that some communities do is they say X percent of the budget. That amount of the general reserve, of the general fund is held in an emergency reserve, but it's based on a percentage of their budget as opposed to what they have in the fund. We're
Correct.
talking about percentage of the general fund.
Correct.
Got it.
And in those cases, in the other communities, it's usually activated when the operating cost is going to be more than what's in the reserves. So what they end up doing, and they have the revenue stream for it, what they end up doing is they move money, hey, we need to find 200,000 so that we can have 25% of our total revenue and operating costs in the reserves. Luckily, based on what we've been done over the past several years, especially the last 2 years, we are now at about 80 or 90% compared to what our budget is. Correct, Paul?
Yes, that's right.
Okay,
Oh.
so we're almost at 100% there. So we're really close. So
2.4 against 3.9, that's not 80%.
no,
We're projected to be over 3.1.
Oh, it'll be
And-
3.1 of 3, okay.
And our emergency expenses were more than what FEMA reimbursed. There were other expenditures FEMA.
I'm not going by what FEMA reimbursed. I believe the total expenditure was about 1.1 million.
So my other question is, okay, so I wanted to make sure we're all clear on that. It's a percentage of the
Correct.
not the
The
budget.
general
Okay,
fund.
the general fund, not the budget. My other question is, this is going to be in the ordinance for the budget, right, Mario?
Correct.
Be part of the ordinance. Okay. So does that mean that when we do a budget for next year, it expires with the end of fiscal 23 and we have to add it every year? Or is it a permanent thing unless we change it? That might be a question for Valerie. Valerie, if we say 50% of and it's in I guess my point is that it's in the ordinance regarding the budget. Is it tied to that ordinance that is replaced with another ordinance the following year and we need to do it every single year? Or is it there in perpetuity until we change it or remove it? My point is.
I'm happy to answer part of that, but she's
Yeah.
unmuted now.
Yeah, thank you. No, any budget amendment or any change in the budget is going to be by ordinance. So the whole idea of like in perpetuity, I think what you're talking about is the proposed ordinances that we had spoken about in the past, where they would require like a supermajority or something like that. That would not be implemented unless you pass an ordinance to that effect. Otherwise, it would be treated like any other budget.
Right.
I
So
don't-
the savings, and to answer your question, the savings that we built in to the ordinance would be for this fiscal year.
Right.
And so next, we would say, this is the ordinance for revenues and expenditures and blah, blah, blah. And, whereas 50% of the general fund balance will be assigned for expenditures towards emergencies.
So because next year at this time, we're doing a budget that will replace the fiscal 23 budget. It'll be the fiscal 24 budget. Valerie, at that point, will we do it again in that budget, or will that 50% portion of the ordinance
No, you
for
would
this
do it-
year continue
You
on?
would do it yearly. And the reason why, when we discussed the item, that we were doing it now as part of this ordinance was because there would be a much bigger expenditure and a lot more time to go into set its own financial policy for the village that would then be a standalone ordinance apart from any budgetary
Okay, I just want to
item.
make sure we're all.
So this
clear.
was more of hey, there's a real simple solution to this. We just make sure we assign an emergency in the general fund balance for emergencies at 50%, and we just make it as part of the overall ordinance for
And
this
it makes
budget,
it
and
nice
that's it.
and neat. So just so we're all clear, it's a percentage of the general fund, and it's also, we do it every year. So it becomes part of how we operate, or as long as whoever's sitting up here decides they think it's important enough to include, we have to all make sure, as long as we're here, that we continue to do that if we think it's important. And I hope we do.
Correct.
One last question was, Valerie, is there a supermajority required to override this? Because that was something we discussed, or not because it's part of an ordinance, a regular ordinance, but because it's part of the budget ordinance, it's a regular ordinance, changed with 2 readings of an ordinance that would change it.
It's a regular ordinance, so it would just read a regular majority in order to adopt any future budgets.
Very good.
To do
Got
the
it.
supermajority, you would have to have, again, a separate ordinance providing for that.
Well, then let's talk about that for a second. So if it's as simple as, instead of including it in the budget ordinance, if it's a separate ordinance, then Valerie, you're saying we could pass it as a separate ordinance that requires a supermajority to override it, but it would just be a separate ordinance at that point. So what's the downside of doing it that way?
I don't know if I understand your question.
I think the overall, if I remember the conversation, saying, the conversation then goes into, well, the amount that's within the general fund, and then having to go in and being able to set a full financial policy for the village, which then means going and doing a financial analysis from an independent party to go in there, and then we're spending another
Well,
20
no, but
something.
short
instead
of that,
that.
Mario, I mean, all I'm saying is it's going to be part of the budget ordinance. It's an ordinance. It's an ordinance. Could we, Valerie, just pass it as a separate ordinance the same night, pass it as a separate ordinance so we can put in the supermajority requirement, and then it is an ordinance, then that figure does it live on, that ordinance lives on forever until we would change it. If we wanted to change the percentage, whatever. So
I think if I understand what your question is to have a completely separate ordinance aside from the budget ordinance that is on first and second reading. And by the way, it does not have to be contemporaneous with the adoption of the
Understood.
budget.
I understand that.
But have a separate ordinance that provides for the supermajority. Yes, that's within the commission's discretion. I think what Mario was discussing was that when we had previously addressed this as a discussion item, I think what he wanted to do was a reserves analysis to see whether or not that was going to be prudent.
Okay, so those are our options. So I think we should just include, look, when I look at a situation, I try to look at all of it and just make sure we're making the best decision. I'm totally cool with it the way it is that we discussed setting it up as being part of the regular budget ordinance. And I think Mario's suggestion of 50% is a really good, safe starting point. It protects a big chunk of money of this village from some commission doing something stupid. And that's really kind of the bottom line. And then at least it's a starting point, and then every year we can address it as our reserve fund changes, and we can decide, we can protect more and more percentage wise if we need to. So I'm good with 50.
Okay. I'm seeing everybody's head shake, so, okay, Commissioner. And then the last question is millage and the 17.5. The commission has a lot of options here. They can move that 17.5 into a project. They can move it into the reserves. They can lower the millage. If you wish to have more revenue, you can increase the millage. So it just kind of depends what's the will of the commission here for the
If we
balance.
put the traffic study in, how much would we have to increase the millage to cover that?
That's a Paul question.
Well,
Paul, if
each point
they're
one is
talking,
29 grand.
yeah, if they're talking a 50,000 and we already have 17.5, what's the remaining? And where would the millage end by finishing the funding?
Point
Yeah,
one,
it's a little over 30, it's $32,500. So it's almost essentially 1/10. It's within about $1,000 of that. So it's
So it would be what,
1.2,
9.6,
yeah, 1.2 or 3. Yeah.
9.61,
Paul, I didn't understand what
9.62.
you said.
Yeah, right in that range.
So point one is
Yep.
29,000, right?
So you have other options besides adjusting the millage. Obviously, that's what the manager just pointed to, but you could also just designate some reserves for it.
Yeah.
And not monkey with the millage.
Right, but point one is $29,000, right?
Yes,
0.1 millage change. So 29, and you're saying right now we're over by 17.5, right?
right. So less
Puts us at
50,000.
That puts us at 46.5. We're almost there if we did 0.1. I'm just laying out the options here. So if we did,
Yeah.
Judy, if we did your,
'Cause from the numbers we were coming up with earlier, I thought we were going to have to go over 9.6.
so if we
that
went
would
to
put us at
9.6, it would
9.6.
all, between that and what we're over now, it would almost be enough for the initial thing. But remember, we're not spending it. Now, what we have done, we're not spending the money, but we have done it as tax people for it. But then we look at the chart and see the dollar amount that people are actually being taxed. So then the conversation is, look, if we do this, you can see how much different people are paying to fund a traffic study, basically. So each household is paying a certain amount based on a 0.1 millage increase, plus what overage we have in here now. The other option is we could take a swing in the other direction as well, because if you look at 29, 22, so we'd have to come up with, to decrease 0.1, we have an overage right now of $17,000. So to decrease, if we decrease 0.1, that gives us another 29. Well, minus the 17 takes it down to 12, right? So we could also look at ways to go through a budget and trim out that difference now at this point to come up with enough to decrease the millage 0.1.
I would feel
Because it's pretty
comfortable
standard
either
for an organiz-
staying at 9.5 or 9.6, and if you want to add that traffic study on, I could change.
Because I'm just laying out all the options.
Where,
So the other option is if we were able to trim $12,000, just $12,000 out of this budget. Look, many organizations at this point say, go find $12,000 in our $3.9 million budget. Go find 12 grand.
yeah. if
Every
that's-
department
if that's the
contributes,
will-
and
if
next-
that's the will of the commission, then I would locate 12
Yeah,
and
you cut
from
little-
different areas to try to locate it.
This is where someone, the guy in charge goes through and slices and dices, and we'll take $250 here and whatever, and just takes little bits all over the place, comes up with 12 grand. If Mario came up with
Okay,
12
so
grand.
you don't want to fund the traffic studies, what you're telling me.
No, Judy, I'm simply laying out all the options because we're having a conversation. So one option was what you said. The other option is, my point is, we could decrease from 9.5, what's budgeted now, to 9.4. Because all Mario has to do is trim $12,000 out of this $3.9 million budget. That 12, the 17 we're over now, enables us to drop the millage to 9.4. The traffic study's not in there. Y'all decided you didn't want the traffic study. So,
Okay, then let's just leave it where it
know,
is
I
and forget it.
but we could, what I'm saying is this is an opportunity to decrease the millage.
I don't see a
9.4.
reason to do that.
Okay, well, I'm just laying out all the
Commissioner
options.
Gonzalez?
That's
what we
things we
do.
want to do.
Fine with putting it at 9.6 and funding the study because, again, I think it's important and I think the community wants, the feedback that I've gotten from the community is that a lot of people want it. A lot more people want it that don't want it. So I'm okay with raising it 0.1 and
So our options are, what we're saying here is the option is to increase 0.1 and use the balance and the new money, the newly found money to fund the study, put it in. The other option, just so you're all clear, you could drop it to 9.4 and ask Mario to find $12,000 trimming all over the place and drop the millage rate from 9.5 to 9.4. And the other option is take that $17,000 and add it into another current project.
Judy,
Put it in the rec center. You could put it in the rec center, for example, and Mario
didn't-
could spend it
I
on.
didn't because I thought it was going to take us up to 9.7. I didn't realize with all the other additions we were making, it was still going to keep us at 9.
One other option, if the commission wants to go to 9.6, is just do the 9.6, that 29,422, add the 17.5, right, which gives you 46,922, and just that is the traffic study. It doesn't have to go up to 50, right? And we'll find out what the range is, and then what if we do go to an RFP and we come back, then the commission will have the opportunity to then say, okay, we're short 3,000, we're short 5,000, or whatever it is. We'll do that. We'll fund it from, reserves or
Whatever,
whatever. We'll
yep.
do a budget amendment.
Cut something. a lot
Or, hey, look, it actually came in under, we don't have to do a cut. So there's an opportunity to fund the traffic study there. Again, if you want to go more than a 9.6, that's an option for you as well. And again, for your first hearing, I can have the budget at 9.4.
No.
That's where you guys want to go. So you have a lot of
We have a
flexibility
lot
which
of,
way you
that's-
want to
that's
do.
the neat
I
thing.
would
Right now,
rather
have
we do
flexibility.
more
Okay.
and go
So-
a little bit up.
Okay, so I think I understand where Commissioner Gonzalez is, Mayor. Where would you like the millage? 10.8.
Okay, so here's another option. So, and this is basically another way to say what you just said, Mario. The other option, because we can increase to 9.6, take the money, call it a traffic study, put it out to bid, he reports back, we see what happens. We could drop it to 9.4 and ask Mario to cut $12,000 out and there's no traffic study, right? That's another option. Cut the budget by $12,000, chicken feed really, and drop the millage rate. Great message to our residents. You keep it at 9.5. Take this $17,000 that we have over and call that a traffic study. Just call $17,000 a traffic study, right? And put it out there, and he's going to get bids, and he'll find out what it is. He can come back to us and say, well, the good news is I got some bids. The bad news is it's $50,000. And then he can come to us, and then we could have another conversation about where do we get it from the general fund if you want to do it, or cut things out. We're not going to do the awning from the tot lot, move money over.
And,
So-
and to clarify, because I know we keep using traffic study, it's not a traffic study, it's a data collection, traffic data collection. It's not a traffic study. It's a component of a traffic
Got
study.
it. Understood.
This is the only component. And I just want to clarify, because I know we have residents that are going to be listening and it's like, wait, a traffic study is only 50 grand. What, why are we arguing so much? A full traffic study where you're going to get the full recommendations can be anywhere between, including this portion, can be much more. So we're just looking at the first phase.
The data
right?
collection.
For
So-
the data collection. And yeah, if the commission wants to at least put the 17.5, keep the millage the same, we're back in the same position, even if we go up to 9.6, where we can say, hey, now that we got the proposal, this is and I think it has to be an RFQ, if I'm not mistaken, because it falls under a
Engineering
certain.
study.
Well,
Yeah, so we would negotiate that, and we might get a very small firm, and they might be able to say, hey, I can do this, fairly cheaply, and we can
Or
be
we
within
might
your
decide
budget, or
that we
it
move
might
money
not
from
be.
something else if we decide it's more important.
I also think we've been talking about building reserves and protecting our money and not living out of what we have that's sitting there. I think we need to budget for it if we're going to do it. So I would rather go to 9.6 and put in the traffic study if we're going to do a traffic study.
I'd
Okay,
rather go,
so
I'd rather
that's-
stay at 9 point, I'm just going to state
Okay.
mine. I'd rather stay at 9.5,
Not do.
call 17.5 a traffic study, put it in there, let Mario go do his job. He can come back and we can decide if it's important enough that we need to take extra money out of the reserves to do it. It's the same people's money. It's still residents' money, but we did it without we take a little hit, or we look in the budget and say, Mario, what's not going to get done? And what's less important than this year?
Mac, you created a beautiful spreadsheet with what the impact of
The millage, yeah.
is to every individual household. And it's minimal to nothing.
Yep.
And now we're arguing about a one difference. I don't get it. You came up with the spreadsheet that said that the impact to particular homeowners is nominal. I mean, nothing.
$200 for $1 million house.
Yeah.
I get it.
But
get it.
most people pay what, $24 difference?
And look, when I put that up there, it wasn't to argue for an increase. It was just to make sure we had actual numbers in front of us.
That's a
I
good
wanted real
argument.
numbers. But here's the difference tonight, Art. So you're saying,
That's a
well,
good argument.
yeah, I know it is. It was my argument. I get it. But we didn't have this in front of us at the time. We have an overage now of 17.5. And I like to be conservative when I can be. And so if I'm looking at 17.5 towards what we're thinking might be 50, I'd rather go out and see what we can get, what Mario can get for quotes, and then come back and we can figure out what we're going to do. We can go into the general fund, or we can
don't
cut
like
something else out of the
I
budget.
don't like taking.
And here's the
money
other thing,
out of
guys.
the general
Every
fund.
year, Paul, what is the average amount of money that we roll over every year that's unspent in our budget that rolls over into the general fund?
Well, we initially designed the budget with a 5% immediately,
So what's
which
an
is about
amount?
120,000.
So we're rolling 120 plus every year into the general fund. My point is in fiscal 23 budget, there will be money in there that he'll be able to go say, okay, we'll take from here and here and we can get this done.
Yeah, but
I'd rather let Mario do it.
Remember what just happened with the pump? We took $30,000 out of the public works that they were supposed to get their roof fixed.
Yeah.
And we pulled that to get a pump. We didn't
Yep.
go into the reserves because nobody here wanted to go into the reserve.
Exactly. But we have the option if we want
We
to.
have the option. The question is, do we want to do it? And probably not. So we're going to ask again, hey, let's cut here, let's cut there, things that are necessary. The roof for the public works was necessary and we took it because there was an emergency and we didn't want to.
And we needed one, yeah, and every year, there's money that rolls over
I
that just
prefer
doesn't
to
get
budget
done.
for it and put the money in there and not have to be scrounging and taking money from things that are necessary. So that's just my.
So if I understand, both Commissioner Gonzalez and Hamelberg would prefer to have the millage at 9.6 and
for
fund
what
the
we
the
wanna
traffic.
do. Right.
The traffic data collection is what I'm going to call it. I'm not going to
Traffic
call it a
data.
traffic study anymore.
I'll try to use that language.
Thank you, sir.
So, okay. So
and I
look,
think-
I'm cool with that. I'm totally
Okay.
cool with it, but go ahead.
Hold it. So from there, Mayor, is there a consensus then? Are you okay on that end as well? Okay, so I hear, last thing,
But I didn't do mine. But just for the record, I'd rather do 9.5 and figure it out on the back end, but that's okay. We'll do it that way. And because I know there will be $150,000-$200,000 in this budget we're approving that's not going to get spent and will
okay,
roll over.
so,
And I know we
Right.
have a bunch of old buildings and a bunch of old equipment, and God knows if
So
one
as
of our
of-
police cars is gonna get in trouble and we need to replace it, we're gonna need.
so as of right now, I have a 2.2, which means it dies and we still have a 17.5 surplus. What do I
Oh,
do
did
with
Judy vote no, or Ginny vote no?
I
It-
really want the 9.5.
No, I'm 9.5. Yeah.
that? Okay, so we're at 9.5 with a 17.5.
Well, then can we now agree to take that 17.5 and call it a traffic study and go with Plan B?
Traffic data collection,
Data
sir.
Traffic data collection. I'm sorry, traffic data collection. Can we agree to do that way?
TDC.
Mario, where would
I
that go?
don't agree with taking it out of our reserves for it, no.
We're not taking anything out of our reserves. We're just simply for now, Judy, all we're saying is call 17.5 a traffic data collection study. And did I do it right? And let Mario figure it out and come back to us and see what we can do.
So earlier we said that we were gonna get Dan's input on something, right? Earlier, what was it that?
Well, I just asked generally, like, is Dan going to be part of this, even though he's not here? And he will be at first reading and second reading.
Okay, so
yeah.
he'll have.
He'll have the opportunity, yeah. Oh, yeah, we all have the opportunity to change our mind if we wanted to at this point. Till second reading, we can change whatever we want to.
So we're just gonna leave 17.5 as a surplus. Okay,
Can we call it a traffic study and slot it in?
no. Traffic data collection.
Traffic data collections. I'm sorry. Can we call it
You
that?
voted against it, so you voted against funding it, so I'd say no.
Judy, for the record, I voted against your tax increase to fund it, just for the record, Commissioner Amelberg. So don't misquote me. What I'm saying is now that we've said no to that, what are we going to do with that 17.5? It can't just hang out there and no
Put it in
man's.
reserves.
You can't put it in reserves. It's in a budget for this fiscal year, Judy. You can't just
You
put
can't
it in the
trans-
reserves.
No, you can't transfer.
But you can. Why, that's what I'm saying. Why can't we just put it in there 17.5 and put it in there as that and let it sit there? It will roll over if it doesn't happen and let Mario go do his job and see what he comes up with.
Okay. So Commissioner Gonzalez is okay with that.
I'm
So
okay
there is a consensus. There is one resident who would like to make a comment. Does the board wish to hear that? Or not?
Can we ask who it is? Because Bob probably found something we need.
Is there, okay, I see a consensus.
I'm fine with it, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for, did you unmute me? Thank you. I really urge the commission to go ahead and go to 9.6. That traffic study. Just because the previous commissions that I happen to be on failed to follow through with all of the items that should have been addressed. Some of them were addressed. Stop signs happens to be on one of the areas on no U-turns on Fifth Avenue and 121st Street. And we failed on numerous other things because of our managers at that time. I am hoping that we don't fail again. We need to go ahead, that small amount of increase to the property owners, very tiny to most of us, that we go ahead and earmark that for this traffic survey. If the commission has read the previous report, you will be eye-opening to some of the recommendations and some of the items that they saw. And it would be a benchmark to take a look at what's happening now. So you can be then forward budgeting in the future to figure out how to fix some of the problems. In the small amount, instead of nickel and diming completely, because I've been on commissions that we nickeled and diming, and this is why we are what we are. Thank you very much.
Okay, we will present the budget on September 6th for our first public hearing. That will be at 6 o'clock, and our next commission meeting is on September 13th. Commission is September 13th, and our budget hearing is September 6th. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you all. Good night.